Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. As long as I know what makes her special and amazing, that's enough. Critical hit. Akiko clutched her full chest as her heartbeat sped up. That kind of instant, no wind-up attack. That's a top-tier meta move. Itsuki looked unsure. She felt like she was picking up on an unfamiliar scent. Yutaha hesitated as well. She couldn't quite tell whether Makoto had just accidentally spoken his true feelings, or if he had seen her trying to tease Akiko and took the opportunity to swoop in. If it was the latter, didn't that mean she had created an opening for him? Made herself his wingman? Suddenly, Makoto turned around and asked, "By the way, senpai, what you said earlier about joining the club? Did you mean it?" Yutaha blinked. The unexpected question broke her train of thought. She replied immediately, "I haven't decided yet." Makoto muttered to himself, "I thought you'd already made up your mind, which is why you said that." Yutaha's eyes filled with suspicion. "Why would you think that?" Makoto replied, "I was thinking about it seriously earlier." "Senpai, you're really sharp. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come up with that 1 arrow, 3 birds plan." 1 arrow, 3 birds? That phrase immediately caught Akiko and Itsuki's attention. Yutaha's expression stiffened slightly, but her tone stayed calm. "What do you mean?" Makoto smiled casually. "You already knew I lived in the same apartment building as Matsuke's sensei, but instead of going directly to her place, you waited for me at the school gate. That means..." He deliberately paused for a second. Yutaha's gaze clearly became a bit more tense. Looking her straight in the eyes, he said, "If I agreed to go with you to see Matsuke's sensei, you'd not only get closer to her, but would appear present. The mood wouldn't feel stiff or formal like it might with an adult around. Most importantly, you'd be able to ask me more questions. With how kind and gentle Matsuke's sensei is, if you had any doubts or needed help, she'd go all out to support you. Like, if I didn't want to talk about literary stuff, she'd bring it up herself to keep you from feeling let down." Makoto took a sip of tea. "You'd ease the tension, get a smooth visit with Matsuke's sensei, and gain more insights. Doesn't that count as 1 arrow, 3 birds?" Itsuki looked completely stunned. She hadn't expected this turn in the conversation at all. Akiko gave Yutaha a long, deep look. So senpai wasn't just a wicked woman, she was a scheming wicked woman. Feeling the intense gazes of all 3, Yutaha looked down at her teacup, trying to compose herself, though she was internally shocked. "So I was right last time after all. It's like he's known me for a long time. He understands me so well." Yutaha really had thought of all those things. She knew she was beautiful and a well-known student, but if she kept discussing professional topics with Makoto, there was no guarantee he wouldn't grow impatient. That's why she had decided to visit Mayu today. With such a kind teacher present, she felt confident she could extract even more insights from Makoto. She really wanted to improve. All the knowledge outside of textbooks she'd gained had been through self-study. And while she considered herself outstanding, even the best still need guidance from a pro. Now she had finally met someone who could help her improve quickly, and they got along well too. She wasn't going to let that opportunity slip away. Makoto eased up on the pressure and spoke more gently, "I probably won't be free today. Since I just decided to form a club, I still have some things to discuss with Akiko." Before Yutaha could say anything, his tone shifted again, "But, of course, if senpai is willing to join the club, then you'd have a chance to grow every day." Once again having her true thoughts laid bare, Yutaha grew so embarrassed that even her shapely legs in black stockings under the table tensed and pressed together. "I'll have to think about it," she mumbled vaguely, not even having time to compose herself. "See? Now that you've been actually invited, you're not even happy." Makoto almost laughed. Judging by her expression when she tried to tease Akiko earlier, he could easily guess that she probably thought, "I'm not interested in some weird club." If she agreed to join now, that boomerang would smack her right in the face. At that moment, Makoto noticed Akiko staring at him. He deliberately asked, "What is it?" Akiko responded with a beautiful smile. Nothing. Just her heart pounding, an unbearable itch, and a bit of yearning, that's all. Club member Akiko salutes the president. Loyal. Devoted. Ever since Utaha tried to challenge her, and Makoto suddenly stepped in and masterfully handled the situation. While even considering her feelings. Honestly, for a moment, she was totally dazzled. And now, she was starting to think that Senpai and Itsuki were kind of in the way. If it were just the two of them here, that would have been perfect? So she thought. What followed was casual chatting, still led by Makoto. He knew these three girls' personalities and interests very well. He knew what to talk about, and what to avoid. After a while, Makoto noticed Itsuki looking at a beautifully decorated wall nearby and asked, "If you're interested, Itsuki, I can take a photo for you." Itsuki blushed slightly. "I wasn't thinking of taking a picture. I just thought it looked nice." "I know, but I can take an even better one for you." Eh? Hearing that, Itsuki was slightly tempted. But a girl's modesty kept her from standing up. Makoto held out his hand. "Give me your phone. Just follow my instructions. I'll help you take a really nice photo. I was really just looking. Just hand it over." Under Makoto's urging, Itsuki finally walked over to the wall, cheeks flushed. The other customers were unfazed. It had become a tradition in this cafe. Some of the male customers, though, kept glancing toward Makoto's table. Who could blame them? Utaha and the other two were just too pretty and too well endowed. "Itsuki, move a little to the right. That's it. Relax your expression, give me a smile." Itsuki blushed the entire time as she moved according to Makoto's directions. Once the photo was taken and Makoto handed the phone back, Akiko immediately leaned over. "Let me see. I haven't even looked yet." Itsuki protested, pushing her sister aside. "Let me see. Whoa, it's really pretty. Itsuki, look at this one. Your long legs really stand out, the lighting is great, and the whole vibe is so gentle and serene." With Akiko's amazed voice in her ears and her own image shining in the photo before her eyes, Itsuki had to admit. Makoto really knew how to take pictures. Way better than the one she took herself. She often worried in private that she looked stiff and boring. But the girl in this photo was different. Calm, elegant, with a graceful smile that captured the beauty of youth. "You've studied photography?" Utaha didn't join the commotion, but from the sisters' reactions, she could tell Makoto's photography skills were excellent. Makoto nodded. "I studied it a bit in the past. If Yukino were here, she'd probably ask, 'Studied again?' But Utaha just softly said, 'Oh. Makoto. I want you to take a photo for me too.'" Akiko walked up to Makoto, tilted her head cutely, cheeks flushed red. The shy charm of a young girl on full display. Her adorable look instantly captivated several nearby male customers. They practically turned into bystanders from the mad monk, dying to shout, "Let her take it! Let her take it!" Even Makoto had to admit. At this moment, Akiko was extremely alluring. And he knew she was putting on an act. Because a girl can be prey. And a hunter. She can be the delicious prey. Or the beautiful hunter. Chapter 25, and so, Makoto summoned Mrs. Yukino Shita. Akiko was definitely doing it on purpose. The photos Makoto had just taken of Itsuki turned out beautifully. At the very least, she had never seen photos of Itsuki that looked this good before. Though she knew part of it was due to Makoto's photography skills, there was another undeniable reason. Itsuki was simply very pretty to begin with. Since even her little sister looked that good, then as the older sister, she had to be even cuter. Usually mischievous and a bit more mature than her sisters, Akiko was currently scheming away with confidence. If the five sisters truly had a spiritual connection, perhaps the other girls back at home, like Nino, could hear the clatter of Akiko's mental abacus. Naturally, Makoto agreed to Akiko's request. Just like before, he used the skills he had learned in the time loop to snap several beautiful candid photos. Akiko was very pleased as she looked at the photos on her phone. As expected, I'm the cuter one. Because I'm the big sister. After that little episode, Utaha bought the 2 books she'd picked out earlier and took the initiative to say goodbye. She still had to visit Mayu. Since Makoto said he was unavailable today, she wasn't going to push it. There was just one thing she regretted. She didn't get to see the photos of those 2 girls for herself. She didn't think she'd be swayed by Makoto's photography skills, but seeing how delighted Akiko and the others were, the photos must have come out stunning. Well, curiosity was natural. She had that too. But from start to finish, Makoto never once said to her, "Senpai, would you like to have your photo taken too?" She wasn't close with Akiko, so she didn't ask to see the photos either. Looks like he gets along well with the girls from the Nakano family. That was the thought that surfaced in Utaha's mind as she left with her gifts. She might not have realized it, but that feeling she had was exactly the same kind of dissonance Yukino once experienced. Meanwhile, to keep Itsuki from interfering with her date, Akiko deliberately went to a nearby shop to buy her sister a meat bun. Having received this bribe, and then being told by Akiko that she wouldn't be home for dinner, Itsuki could only say goodbye. Before leaving, she turned back to glance at Makoto, wondering if the two were about to talk about Akiko's secrets. Her curiosity made her want to eavesdrop, but her reason quickly stopped her. Now it's time to talk business. Makoto looked at the girl beside him, smiling like a flower, and said this on purpose. Akiko adorably shook her head. Nope. This is our precious alone time. Business can wait until next time. Are you trying to show off your laziness to me? Ah, Makoto, now that's just rude. Akiko tried to hide her embarrassment. She was afraid he'd bring up the whole trash pile incident again, so her eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. And soon, she had an idea. I'm going to grab a juice. You want one? She pointed at a bustling drink shop at the corner ahead. Makoto replied, I'm good. The shop was doing excellent business. Just the line at the entrance already had more than 10 people. With customers coming and going on both sides, the small storefront looked even more crowded. Akiko pretended not to notice the crowd. She deliberately walked into the busiest part of the street, anticipation blooming in her heart. She slowed her pace, waiting. And then, suddenly, felt warmth in her right palm. Her hand had been taken. Then Makoto's voice came from beside her, why aren't you watching where you're going? There are so many people here. Be careful not to get pushed away. Akiko turned her head and smiled brightly. Thanks for the warning. The warmth in her hand gave her a little girlish shyness, but she covered it up with her acting skills. As expected, high-level hunters often appear as prey first. She felt proud of herself. But then Makoto suddenly remarked, your acting still has a ways to go. Looks like forming that club was the right call. You're going to need to work harder. Akiko's smile froze for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure and feigned ignorance. Makoto, what are you talking about? Makoto didn't answer. He simply raised a hand that was holding hers. Akiko suddenly felt her cheeks heat up. Had she been seen through so quickly? She didn't dare continue the topic and hurriedly said, wanna stand in line with me? Sure. While enjoying how she tried to cover up her embarrassment, Makoto thought to himself, she's even cuter in moments like this. He could see right through the little thoughts she was having. Your scheme has been uncovered. But even so, since she had already tossed out the bait, of course he was going to take it. You think you're the hunter? No, Akiko. You're the prey. After they bought their juice, Makoto originally wanted to talk to her about the club. But out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly noticed a car. More precisely, a high-end silver gray sedan. He had seen this car before. It's you. Nakano, old man. Makoto was quite satisfied. His target had finally shown up. Not only had he brought Akiko out today, but he'd also brought along Itsuki. With someone like Nakano Maruo, who spoils his daughters rotten, it'd be weird if he didn't show up. Makoto came to a halt. Akiko. Akiko had been thinking about how to keep holding hands with him when she heard Makoto call her, and she looked over instinctively. Makoto didn't speak. He just motioned toward the car with his eyes. That car looks familiar. Wait, that's father's car. Akiko's expression shifted slightly. As if on cue, the door of the car opened, and a handsome middle-aged man with neatly parted hair stepped out. He was indeed good-looking, but his expression was blank and carried a certain coldness. More importantly, the moment he stepped out, his sharp gaze immediately landed on Makoto. That long-held aura of a superior was unmistakable. Akiko quickly whispered, that's my father. He's a little old-fashioned and serious, but he's really good to us. Makoto nodded. Of course he already knew that. He also knew that Nakano Maruo actually wanted to spend more time with his daughters. But because he was bad at expressing himself and clung to his pride, unwilling to let go of his roles as both hospital director and father, their relationship had grown distant. You could even say it was strained. Nakano Maruo walked straight up to the two of them and spoke in a cool tone, Akiko, can you introduce this young man to me? Akiko opened her mouth, he's. But Makoto stepped forward and said, my name is Fushimi Makoto. I'm a good friend of Akiko's. Not just a friend. A good friend. Nakano Maruo caught the implication. This time, his gaze turned directly to Makoto, but his voice remained cool. While I understand that young people are eager to present themselves, I was asking Akiko just now. The implication was clear, you're being rude. Akiko gripped her juice tightly, anxious to smooth things over. But she didn't know what to say. After all, being caught by her father while out alone with a boy. Any way you looked at it, it gave the impression that this little punk was trying to steal away the old man's precious daughter. And Makoto was clearly that punk. I'm aware you were asking Akiko. Makoto said with a polite smile. I also know you've long been aware of my existence. The sentence sounded a bit convoluted, enough to make Akiko blink in surprise. Nakano Maruo's face didn't change. Children do tend to have vivid imaginations. He was putting Makoto in the position of a child, asserting his pressure as an elder. But Makoto didn't buy it at all. If you'd like to talk to me, we can move to a more suitable place. At that moment, Akiko seized the chance and laughed, trying to sound relaxed. Right. We haven't eaten yet. Father, would you like to join us? Nakano Maruo glanced at his daughter. From head to toe, she was practically shouting, I care about him. This made the old father feel a little sour. He stared coldly at Makoto and said, I was planning to have dinner with Akiko. It's been a long time since we ate together. Our dinner plans don't include you. The message couldn't be clearer. But Makoto played his trump card, it's not just Akiko. I'm also good friends with Itsuki. Nakano Maruo's brow furrowed slightly. He didn't like how composed this boy was. It was as if Makoto understood him too well. And if that was really the case, then it would be hard for him, as a father, to give this little punk the scolding he wanted to. Would you like to have dinner with us? Nakano Maruo finally asked. He had decided. It was time to have a serious talk with this boy. Sure. But I'll need to make a quick call first. Makoto pulled out his phone. Nakano Maruo assumed he was just calling his parents to let them know he wouldn't be home for dinner, so he didn't pay it any mind. But instead, Makoto dialed Mrs. Yuki Noshida. Calling in backup? You want to hit me with a personal power play? Then I'll just bring in someone to make this a business discussion. Makoto loved team-based competitive games, and he understood one key principle very well: if your lane isn't going well, you call for the jungler. And Mrs. Yuki Noshida? She was absolutely a top-tier jungler on the national server. Time to turn the tables. Chapter 26, White Horse. Let him come and never return. Makoto's phone call went very smoothly. When Mrs. Yuki Noshida learned that he was going to have dinner with Nakano Maruo and had extended an invitation to her, the beautiful and mature lady immediately expressed her gratitude sincerely. It just so happens that my husband and I haven't returned to Chiba yet. Makoto, send me the address. We'll be there right away. After hanging up, Makoto returned to where the Nakano father and daughter were standing. Finished with the call? Nakano Maruo asked flatly. Yeah. We can head to the restaurant and sit for a while. My elder will be here soon. Makoto nodded. Elder? Both Nakanos were momentarily stunned. It must be Miss Matsuke's, right? That was what Akiko thought to herself. She knew Makoto was on good terms with Mayu. Nakano Maruo, on the other hand, felt a tinge of satisfaction. The calm composure Makoto had shown earlier made him realize this boy might be a bit tricky to deal with. But now, hearing that Makoto had suddenly called for an elder, Nakano Maruo immediately felt relieved. In the end, this kid was just a high school student. Nakano Maruo figured that Makoto must be lacking in confidence, which was why he chose to call for reinforcements. Since this visit had been rather rushed, Nakano Maruo hadn't made a reservation. Instead, he found a fairly upscale restaurant nearby. As they entered the restaurant, Akiko was clearly nervous. She kept stealing glances at Makoto, as if she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Makoto gently squeezed the girl's soft hand, using his gaze to reassure her. To just relax. Akiko hadn't expected him to hold her hand right in front of her father. She blushed, but still responded with a sweet smile. This scene made Nakano Maruo's blood pressure spike. Especially seeing his daughter's shy yet happy expression. It nearly pushed him into full rage mode. He had never seen his daughters smile so sweetly. He was furious at this blonde-haired brat named Makoto, but also annoyed with himself. He'd been too busy all the time. If he had just made more time to be with his daughters, they wouldn't have been so easily swept away by some boy. After the three of them sat down, Nakano Maruo gestured for the waiter to leave, then handed the menu to Makoto. You order. No rush. I can tell you have questions for me. Why don't we wait for the other two elders to arrive before ordering? Makoto took the menu. Putting on an act to look confident again? Nakano Maruo tried not to recall the scene just now. He kept his tone even. If that's the case, then let me ask you. Were you and Akiko on a date today? Akiko blushed, a surge of happiness filling her heart. Makoto answered honestly, you're mistaken. We were out discussing the formation of a club. Before you arrived, Itsuki and Senpai Kasumijoka were both here. Nakano Maruo latched onto the key point. So after the other two left, you decided to go on a date? Makoto replied, again, that's not it. Akiko is the future star of our club. I had many important things to explain to her. What do you mean again? Can't I be right even once? Nakano Maruo kept a straight face. What do you mean by star? Makoto said, the club we plan to form is somewhat related to acting. I'm sure you understand what I mean. Akiko grew anxious. Makoto gently said, don't worry. I'm sure Mr. Nakano already knows about your secret acting aspirations. Akiko froze, turning her head robotically to look at her father. That's right. I do know Akiko dreams of becoming an excellent actress. Nakano Maruo admitted. Akiko lowered her head in embarrassment. That feeling of having a secret exposed on the spot, especially by an elder, was deeply awkward. Only now did Makoto finally speak in a serious tone. So, I hope you can understand. The purpose of the club is to help Akiko become even better. Nakano Maruo clearly didn't accept this reasoning. In my view, the way for a high schooler to become better is through studying. Makoto said, in that case, I'm even more suited to be their friend. Nakano Maruo's expression froze. Not just Akiko, but their friend, right? So you finally revealed your true intentions? Makoto seemed unaware. What I'm about to say might sound boastful, but I do have the qualifications to speak on academics. Nakano Maruo, because you're ranked first in your grade? Makoto suddenly smiled. So you finally admit that you've investigated me? Nakano Maruo. I walked right into that. He glanced at Akiko from the corner of his eye. And as expected, she looked utterly stunned. He pretended not to notice and refocused on Makoto. This time, he dropped his superior's arrogance and composed posture. He had reason to suspect that from the moment Makoto had taken Akiko's hand right under his nose, to mentioning helping his daughter become excellent. It had all been deliberate. Each move seemed designed to push him into revealing things himself. Lower his guard. Then strike with precision. Within 7 steps. Fast and clean. The moment he, in front of his daughter, indirectly admitted to investigating Makoto, he had already lost 1 round in terms of momentum. After all, he knew very well, girls going through puberty valued their privacy greatly. And considering his already strained relationship with his daughters, confessing that he'd investigated their friend would only make things worse. Akiko took a deep breath. Her usual laid-back expression was gone. Her face was now filled with earnest seriousness. Father, I really care about Makoto as a friend. I'm very happy when I'm with him. Nope. His blood pressure spiked again. Nakano Maruo stared at his daughter, who had summoned the courage to speak up. He wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. So he could only turn to Makoto. I acknowledge that being top of the grade is impressive. But students who are top of their grade, I can easily find many. But not all of them can help your daughters improve. Makoto countered. So confident. There's a saying, being good at something doesn't mean you're good at teaching it. There are plenty of examples. Even the basketball god, Michael Jordan, wasn't able to coach his players well. Makoto paused for effect and then unleashed his finishing move. More importantly, how can you be sure Akiko and the others won't dislike the people you find? Nakano Maruo was about to refute, but Makoto quickly added, to them, given a choice between a friend and a stranger, of course they'd choose a friend without hesitation. And Mr. Nakano, I'm sure you wouldn't want them to be unhappy either, right? Nakano Maruo was stuck. Makoto softened his tone. I can tell you care about Akiko deeply. And from that, it's clear you must care just as much about the other 4. If they can grow up happily and safely, that must be one of the most joyous things in your life. Has this kid really never met me before? Nakano Maruo felt an unusual chill down his spine. Not only was this boy close to his daughter, he seemed to have figured him out completely. Had Makoto investigated him while he was investigating Makoto? No. That couldn't be. Other than work, he barely spoke to anyone at the hospital. He had no friends in his private life. Even if Makoto wanted to investigate him, there was no way in. Nakano Maruo stared blankly at Makoto, feeling overwhelmed by the sudden intensity. He couldn't adapt fast enough. Akiko was also staring at Makoto. That rapid heartbeat feeling was back again. Being a bit more mature than her peers, she deeply admired the calm, in-control way Makoto spoke with adults. That kind of presence. It was irresistible to someone without a steely will like her. For the first time in her life, she felt so thrilled she almost couldn't sit still. Just as Nakano Maruo sank into silence, Makoto glanced at his phone, stood up, and said, the elders I invited are here. Pardon me. I'll go greet them at the door. Nakano Maruo snapped out of it. Wait a second. Could this have been part of his plan too? First, use his understanding of me to strike a long conversation, knock me into silence. Then just as I'm reeling, his elders arrive, and I lose all chance of regaining the upper hand. In that case, I've completely fallen into a passive position. He looked up at Makoto's polite and smiling young face. It was as if that face had a line written across it. Round 1 is over. Now begins round 2. Makoto was already walking toward the restaurant entrance. Nakano Maruo's ambush? Humphrey. White horse. Let him come and never return. Makoto believed that, in the future, Nakano the old man would thank him. Because he had a way to help smooth over the father-daughter relationship. And he was genuinely going to see it through. It was just that by the time that day came, girls like Akiko who supported him would likely grow by 4 more. Heart-flattering? No. It was his technique itching for action. Because he was that good at it. So yeah. Technique itch. Nothing wrong with that. Chapter 27. This reward is too much. Makoto met the Yukino Shita couple at the restaurant entrance. Both of them were dressed formally, but since mature men's clothing usually fell into the restrained category, Mrs. Yukino Shita's well-tailored light-colored mid-length coat and skirt happened to highlight the unique charm of a mature woman. Although Yukino was her daughter, she wasn't like Yukino at all, short while standing, and absolutely short when lying down. As for Makoto, he was tall standing up. And still tall lying down. After exchanging greetings, Mrs. Yukino Shita walked beside Makoto and spoke softly. I asked around for you. If you ever want to get involved in the film industry, I have the connections to help. Thank you very much. Makoto replied, having already anticipated this. Mrs. Yukino Shita smiled and said, it's me who should thank you. Without your introductions, we wouldn't have been able to meet director Nakano so quickly. Makoto asked casually, is Mr. Nakano that hard to reach? Mrs. Yukino Shita nodded. His social circle is extremely small. He almost never sees guests unless it's for serious business in the medical field. Otherwise, it's nearly impossible to meet him. I see. Makoto then turned to the quiet Mr. Yukino Shita and said, Uncle, you're being very quiet today. Mr. Yukino Shita coughed awkwardly. You were talking about serious matters, so I didn't want to interrupt. Makoto teased, could it be that you still clearly remember what happened when you were drunk? Mr. Yukino Shita replied, Makoto, let's not bring up the past. Mrs. Yukino Shita couldn't help but smile at the scene. She had a very good impression of Makoto. Whether it was the strange sense of warmth he gave off, or his talents and personality. If this boy could join our Yukino Shita family. This mature woman couldn't help but entertain a few thoughts. When Makoto and the couple returned to the previous table, the Nakano father and daughter were clearly surprised, but they still stood up quickly. After polite greetings and taking their seats again, Nakano Maruo spoke directly, I really didn't expect the people you called, Fashimi, would be you too. Mrs. Yukino Shita chuckled. It's perfectly normal for you to be surprised. Makoto and I are already quite familiar with each other. Speaking of which, Director Nakano, I believe the last time we met was about 2 months ago? That's right. Nakano Maruo was struggling to keep his composure. He'd never have imagined that Makoto would bring the Yukino Shita couple. Akiko was equally stunned. Ever since she sat back down, she had been sending questioning looks to Makoto, what is going on here? Makoto gestured for her to calm down and sent a message from his phone. Akiko quickly picked up her phone and saw the message, because I helped the Yukino Shita family out last time, this auntie felt we had great potential and took the initiative to exchange contact info with me. Akiko, we? Makoto, of course, that includes you 5 sisters too. Akiko glanced at her father, who was chatting with the Yukino Shita couple, and suddenly understood. Something about this situation felt a little strange. Judging by the Yukino Shita's attitude, if she were to become close with Yukino in the future, they would likely be even more pleased. Fortunately, she wasn't an ordinary girl. She quickly adjusted her mindset. But then she noticed something, Makoto was still playing with his phone. The problem was, she hadn't received any messages. So, who was he chatting with? Akiko grew anxious. But with 3 adults around, she couldn't just lean over to peek. Was he chatting with another girl? The thought made her feel uneasy. And as it turns out, she was right. Makoto was chatting with Yukino. More accurately, Yukino had just sent a message, I did a lot of research after I got home today. You mentioned wanting to shoot a short film. That's actually a very complicated endeavor. Are you sure we can manage it on our own? Makoto, who do you mean by we? Yukino, you've made it pretty obvious. The club you're trying to form must be related to the short film, right? Then she sent another message, I can't even guess your true motive for forming this club. It's more about looking after Nakano-san, isn't it? Makoto, you guessed right. Seeing how straightforward his reply was, Yukino couldn't help but think again, he really does treat Akiko better. But she would never say that out loud. Yukino, since you already know what you're doing, I won't press further. Makoto, are you heading off to do something now? Yukino, I was planning to read. Why? Makoto, I'm chatting with your mom right now. Anything you want me to tell her? Yukino? Yukino froze with her phone in hand. What the heck is he trying to do? She typed with a tense face, pardon me for asking, but... Are you and my mother close? Makoto, we're old friends now. Also, don't forget. I'm your big brother. Yukino's blood pressure rose as her fingers typed faster. Then let me ask you. Are you aiming to become the Yukino Shita family's son-in-law? Makoto, why not have you come over instead? Yukino, excellent. I'm no longer interested in chatting with you, Makoto, no problem. I can chat with your mom, Yukino? Seeing the question marks from her, Makoto swiftly turned off the screen and pocketed his phone. All in one smooth motion. Objective of the day, successfully poked Yukino's curiosity. Complete. He turned to Akika, who had been sneaking glances at him, and signaled, I'll explain later. Only then did Akika look away. At that moment, Mrs. Yukino Shita brought up Makoto. Mr. Nakano, are you familiar with Makoto? He's not only top of his grade. He is also incredibly talented in creative writing. My daughter told me that personally. Makoto blinked. What was she getting at? Across the table, Nakano Maruo raised an eyebrow. Creative writing? Mrs. Yukino Shita smiled. Yes. According to my daughter, not only has he written many stories, he also seems to have a talent for screenplay adaptation. This time, instead of a blood pressure spike, Nakano Maruo felt the pressure in his head rise. A good-looking boy, eloquent, and talented too. Could he really keep his daughter safe? Mrs. Yukino Shita flashed Makoto a meaningful smile, and he immediately understood. She was helping him. No wonder. Such a sharp and mature woman could size up the situation in mere moments. Makoto made a mental note. Mrs. Yukino Shita's assistants had succeeded in increasing Nakano Maruo's regard for Makoto. And with that, neither Makoto nor Akiko had much else to do in the conversation. Mrs. Yukino Shita, with her strong sense of ambition, had been offered an opportunity by Makoto. And she intended to make full use of it. As a favor in return, she would change Mr. Nakano's negative perception of Makoto. After finishing his meal, and seeing that Akiko had also put down her chopsticks, Makoto stood up. We'll take our leave now. Don't want to interrupt your business talk. The Yukino Shita couple responded politely. Nakano Maruo hesitated for a second. Makoto smiled. I'll walk Akiko home. Only then did Maruo reply with a lukewarm, I'll leave her in your care. After leaving the restaurant, Makoto noticed Akiko seemed distracted and tossed out a direct pitch, if you want to hold hands, just say it. Why act all shy about it? Huh? When did I say I wanted to hold hands? Wait. No, that's exactly what I want. Akika's brain answered before she could think, and she lifted her fair, delicate hand with a beaming smile. Makoto took it in his grasp. I was just chatting with Yukino Shita about the club stuff. But I think I may have pissed her off a bit. Just as expected. His strategy worked. Feeling the warmth in his palm, Akiko had already forgotten her earlier irritation. She lowered her head, gazing at his hand with sparkling eyes. Her slender fingers curled, gripping tight. This time, I'm not letting you go so easily. She lifted her head in delight. Only to find Makoto staring right at her. What are you looking at? She asked, trying to hide her shyness with a smile. Makoto answered bluntly, I've been meaning to say this for a while. You have beautiful legs. Akiko smirked playfully. That totally sounds like something a pervert would say. But if it's you, Makoto, I won't get mad. So? You want a touch? Makoto, exquisite. Absolutely divine. Akiko blinked. Something felt off. Why did the conversation seem to be getting more and more perverted? That wasn't her original intention when teasing him. So she pretended not to notice, smiling sweetly. As far as I know, boys who are into legs tend to be big fans of different leg wear. Makoto, like what? Ankle socks, black tights, white stockings. Or maybe something bolder like fishnets? You don't have any of those. Why are you listing so many? You never know. Akiko smiled mysteriously. Exquisite, huh? Then you better come and take them off yourself. That's what she was thinking. She didn't actually own any tights. But Nino had a bunch of white knee-high socks. Maybe she could borrow a pair and wear them for him? If Makoto knew what she was thinking, he'd definitely give her a thumbs up and praise her. That's a smoking hot reward. Bring it on. Chapter 28. Those who get it have already opened their browser. Though Makoto had promised Nakano Maruo he'd take Akiko home, he never said when. And Akiko didn't want to go back just yet. Even though she had to be on set around 6 to keep being a background actor. She planned to head home during the last 30 minutes to change. After all, she already knew the route well. Makoto strolled with her for a while, chatting about the future of the club. The club itself was being formed to bring the beautiful girls into the picture. Anyone who plays games knows. Timing your entrance is everything. If he had built the club quietly and then informed the quintuplets later, they might not have agreed. So he revealed Akiko's acting work early, became friends with Itsuki, and gradually brought up the club idea. By this point, both Akiko and Itsuki would naturally want to join. As for the remaining three, Nino and Yotsuba wouldn't be hard. Miku, the shy and introverted one who avoids interacting with others, might seem tricky. But Makoto knew her preferences well. His intel work was already done. As long as 4 of the sisters joined, Miku would follow. Don't underestimate my intel network. While thinking this over, he glanced at the girl holding his hand, still smiling like a fool, and suddenly said, "The reason I was able to get Mrs. Yukinoshita to come so easily today is because I visited her at home before. We chatted a lot and even had dinner together." Akiko turned to him in surprise. "Why are you suddenly telling me this?" "Makoto, I think you have a right to know." Akiko smiled happily, her moist lips curving up. "And what if I want to know even more?" "Ask anything you want." "Okay then." There was a hint of another emotion in her smile. "What did you two talk about? Anything related to Yukino?" "You could say yes. Or no." "Eh? What kind of answer is that?" Makoto baited the hook. "I told Mrs. Yukinoshita I hoped she could treat me as a friend, like a peer. Although I was mainly talking to her, that topic does relate to Yukino in a way." Akiko blinked for 2 seconds before laughing out loud. "Makoto, I didn't think you had that kind of thought in you." Clearly, she and Mrs. Yukinoshita shared similar ideas. They both saw Makoto as the kind of boy who, like many teens, yearned to be seen as an adult, tired of always being treated like a kid. "Makoto, children, this is no laughing matter." Akiko laughed so hard her chest shook. No. Coming from you, it's just too funny." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "You're always so mature when talking with my dad. Even I thought you were the composed type. Who knew you had such lively thoughts?" Makoto put on a helpless expression. "If I'd known, I wouldn't have told you." Akiko reined it in a little, though her smile lingered. All right, I won't laugh. Go on. What I'm about to say next involves a secret about Yukino. I'm still deciding whether to tell you." "A secret about Yukino?" "I have to hear it." "Then come closer." "Okay." Akiko quickly leaned in, even standing on tiptoe. Her fair little face was almost touching his. At this distance, things were undeniably ambiguous. But as the saying goes, ambiguity is the easiest way to get people emotionally high. Akiko was a prime example. Even though the closeness made her a little shy, she refused to back away, her beautiful eyes sparkling. Makoto lowered his head, leaned close to her soft pink ear, and said in a deliberately mysterious tone, "Aunt Yukinoshita agreed to my request, so in private, she calls me Big Brother." Akiko had already been flustered by his breath brushing against her ear, but after hearing that last part, she couldn't hold it in anymore. "She calls you Big Brother?" "PFFT, no, I need a moment to laugh." Akiko bent over, laughing hard. She really couldn't imagine someone as proper as Yukino calling someone her age Big Brother. The image lingered in her mind for just a second, and that alone made her feel it was incredibly ridiculous. Makoto silently watched her. The girl's well-developed figure shook with every burst of laughter. It reminded Makoto of one of the most famous porcelain kilns of the Northern Song dynasty. Rue Kiln. According to historical records, with Rue Kiln, not firing it was not an option. It had to be fired, and fired hard. Those who don't get it are still confused, those who do are already opening their browsers. Akiko finally straightened up after laughing for a while. She wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and muttered, "At last, I've found Yukinoshita's weakness." "You consider that a weakness?" Makoto asked. Akiko smiled sweetly. "Or maybe a handle? Either way, it works. At the very least, I won't be at a total disadvantage in front of her anymore." "Makoto, can't understand, excuse me." "Even if you don't understand, it's fine. This is a girl's private matter." After saying that, Akiko suddenly grinned mischievously. "Since she calls you Big Brother, how about I start calling you that in private too? I've been waiting for this." Makoto kept a straight face. "If you're just joking, there's no need." Akiko blinked slyly. "So you're saying I need to sincerely acknowledge you as my Big Brother?" "Of course. Akiko, you're a girl, so you might not realize that for guys, there are 2 things that make them really happy." "What 2 things?" "One is you're amazing. The other is Big Brother," said with sincerity. Upon hearing this, Akiko didn't laugh at Makoto anymore. Instead, she looked thoughtful. "I think one of my old classmates said something similar." Then she thought, if she really did call Makoto Big Brother, wouldn't that make them big brother and little sister? And if one day the little sister wanted to become the big brother's romantic partner? That mental image was a bit too much. Her fair little face flushed uncontrollably. Makoto pretended not to notice. "Well? Are you sure you still want to call me Big Brother?" "I can do it." Akiko quickly forced out the improper thoughts. Even if that kind of relationship felt thrilling and a bit embarrassing, as long as no one else knew, she could accept it. She'd seen romance dramas and novels. Sometimes couples played strange little games like this to deepen their connection. With a faint smile on her face, the girl tilted her fair neck and sweetly called out, "Big brother." She even added, "From now on, I'll call you Big brother. I'm not joking this time." Congratulations, host, for completing the beginner mission. Mission reward, Akika's potential badge. Akika's path as an actress may seem dim, but in fact, she has top-tier star potential. With this badge, the host will have the potential to become top-tier in any industry. Makoto's first reaction upon seeing the reward: did this badge mutate? Akika might only have top potential in acting, but once the badge fell into his hands, it became a real kaleidoscope of possibilities. Yukino's reward had been a massive boost in learning efficiency, while Akika's was a maxed-out potential cap. These two complemented each other perfectly. But the system's mechanical voice continued. "Thank you, host, for completing the task with such enthusiasm. The system is now one step closer to graduation, as we agreed. Upon completing the beginner mission, the host gains access to more of the system's functions, even though it's against protocol. Screw it. I'm helping you out, detected. Host has lived for decades. You are now a proper old geezer. As such, your physical condition has declined with age. The system has decided to aid you. System gift, Old Geezer Comeback Badge. Any positive physical enhancements the host gains in time loops will now be retained. Your physical improvements no longer have an upper limit. What a great item." Makoto perked up. Previously in time loops, his physical condition would reset if injured, keeping him stuck at an excellent high school student level. Now with this backdoor from the system, he could finally develop the physique of a Baki character. Host has completed all beginner tasks. New feature unlocked: use points to purchase additional time loops. Points are awarded based on the host's skilled abilities. The system will grant points fairly. Detected. Host's culinary skill is at a professional level. Detected. Host's writing skill is at a professional level. Detected. Host's repair tool skills are at a professional level. Hold on. Host, how do you know so many things? Are you cheating? Makoto, just because I'm not cheating doesn't mean it's not an up build. Chapter 29, Who Took a Bite? For normal people, there are only so many hours in a day. Minors need to complete their studies, adults have to fulfill their work responsibilities, so in the end, there's not a lot one can really get done in a day. But Makoto was different. Unless he needed to pursue a beautiful girl, he couldn't even be bothered to attend school during a time loop. All of his time was his to use however he pleased. And because each day in the loop repeated itself, he wanted to avoid the mental fatigue and numbness that came with it, so he actively chose to keep learning new things. It worked extremely well. From knowledge to skills in various industries, he would focus and dive deep, maximizing his ability to avoid growing numb. Even more importantly, the time loop reset everything. Not only did it restore his physical condition, but also his mental state. This meant that even if he studied intensely for 20 hours a day, a single refresh would leave him full of energy again. At this very moment, the system has detected a wide array of talents from him. So much so that in the end, it calculated a total of 30 million points for him. Host, you're totally cheating, the system intern let out a shocked cry. Shocked or not, the system had already decided to partner up with Makoto, so it would continue to operate. Host may now use points to activate time loops. The initial cost per loop is 10 points, doubling with each subsequent use. The point-based loop works like the trial version. You can cancel at any time. Note, no missions will be triggered during the point-based time loops. You're free to focus on self-improvement. Before the system went silent, it added in its usual mechanical voice, to have a powerful host like you in this lifetime. It's truly an honor, we're just helping each other grow. Makoto replied in his heart. He walked around a bit more with Akiko before finally walking her to the entrance of her upscale apartment building. I just remembered, Makoto, you mentioned something about studying when talking to my father. You also said you could help the five of us improve. So, standing at the door, Akiko had her hands behind her back, her bright eyes full of youthful delight and anticipation. Are you planning to become our home tutor? Makoto shook his head. If you're talking about tutoring, I don't need to officially be your home tutor to help with that. Eh? So you're not willing? Shouldn't I be asking you that? Do you think the five of you would even be willing? Akiko instinctively started thinking. I'd definitely be okay with it. Itsuki is friends with you, and she's got the kind of personality that suits studying, so she'd be fine too. She started to laugh. Nino and Miko would probably strongly object. They might even form a negative impression of you because of it. The bait Makoto had dropped earlier had finally worked, so he played along and asked, Yotsuba doesn't seem like a problem, huh? Still, I really would like to be friends with all 5 of you. You're getting a little greedy, Makoto. Akiko thought he was joking and smiled. How about this? We think of a way to get Nino and the others to join a club. That way, if you ever want to tutor us, they'll already have had time to get used to you and won't resist as much. Makoto, great idea. And just like that, the plan was set. What Akiko didn't know was that Makoto had intended it that way from the start. Oh right, how are you planning to spend the weekend? She asked, thinking ahead to the upcoming break. After all, holidays offered a lot of opportunities to make things happen. And how could a little sister not make use of that time to operate on her big bro? I'll probably just stay home and work out. Oh, but if any classmates invite me to game, I'd be more than happy to join. Makoto answered. Totally a guy's kind of plan. So that means you've already gotten to know some classmates. Just a few. I chat with them sometimes about gaming combos. Gaming combos? Akiko suddenly remembered the stuff the guys in her class often talked about. She used to think those topics were super childish. But now, she thought they were kind of charming. Besides, she had totally noticed just now. Makoto had been eyeing her curves. Of course he had. Any guy would be happy when faced with a beautiful girl with a great figure. So she leaned in with a smile. Makoto, I actually know a really fun combo move. Makoto saw that expression on her face and instantly knew she was up to something weird. Still, he asked, what kind of move? Come a little closer. She said, beckoning with a grin. Makoto, while guessing her intentions, still took 2 steps forward. Now they were less than 10 centimeters apart. The perfect distance for a kiss. And what Akiko was thinking was, there's no one around, and this spot isn't covered by the apartment's cameras either. The combo move I'm talking about is. Akiko suddenly stretched out her hand and wrapped it around Makoto's neck. With the pleasant fragrance of her scent filling the air, her arms exerted force as she pressed his face against her chest. Embrace and kill with sincerity. She said, mimicking the boys in her class, her cheeks flushed as she whispered. As for Makoto, he immediately uttered the famous line, I can't breathe. The girl giggled, her face still red. Girls can hold grudges sometimes. You mentioned my acting career in the cafeteria last time, and you did it in front of other girls. I was really embarrassed. She held back her shyness, smiling like a little fox who had succeeded in stealing a bite, watching Makoto's face, which was disordered from holding his breath. But this time, I won. As soon as the words left her mouth, her shyness reached its peak, and she quickly turned and ran off. Makoto took a deep breath. It was as if he could still feel that distinct sensation just now. Whether you win or not, I don't know, but I definitely don't feel like I lost. Makoto raised his head and looked at the balcony of the apartment, where he saw several blurry figures. He glanced back at Akiko, who was stepping into the elevator, thinking to himself, you won't be winning once you get home. Just as Makoto had expected, at this very moment, on the balcony, the 4 girls, led by Nino, were completely stunned. Akiko just hugged him. Yotsuba said loudly. Nino snapped, I don't need you to remind me. The whole cafeteria saw it. Miko pursed her lips tightly and after a long pause, she finally spoke, is Akiko in a relationship? I don't know either. Nino shook her head, instinctively looking at Itsuki, who had remained silent. Itsuki, aren't you friends with Fushimi? Did you not investigate their relationship? Itsuki raised her head and looked at them. I didn't investigate. Akiko is part of our family. This kind of thing must be investigated. Wait, I remember you said you also went out with Fushimi today. Nino remembered a key point. At that, both Miku and Yotsuba turned to look at Itsuki. Feeling the weight of her sister's gaze, Itsuki awkwardly turned her head, embarrassed. Akiko bought me a lot of meat buns. I felt too shy to stay with them. Meat buns bought you off? Are you really just a meat bun monster? Nino teased. Yotsuba grinned and said, that's something Akiko would do. She's really good at bribing us. To be accurate, she always loves teasing us. Miku added. Nino sighed, raising her hand to her forehead. It seemed like it was time for her to handle this herself. That evening, when Akiko returned home from the set, she was immediately subjected to intense questioning by her sisters. Fortunately, she had 1 foot already in the adult world, and her experience and mindset were more mature than her younger sisters. She fought with all her might and finally defeated her opponents. Damn it, Akiko, you're getting sneakier. After taking a shower, Nino found Akiko again. The loose nightgown she wore couldn't conceal her well-developed figure, and especially as she now had her arms crossed over her chest, it accentuated her stunning curves. She was now clearly puffing up in annoyance. Though, to be fair, she was always puffed up anyway. Nino, you came at the perfect time. I need to ask you something. Akiko said with an overly sweet smile. That smile looks terrible. What are you up to? Nino asked, suspicious. Do you have any spare thigh-high stockings? Can I borrow a pair? Huh. Akiko, using her usual charm, eventually managed to borrow a pair of thigh-high stockings from Nino. Once she put them on, she looked at herself in the mirror. My legs are really beautiful. The only regret is that I'm not as tall as Kasumijoka-senpai. Otherwise, my legs would look even better. Akiko took out her phone, snapped a picture of her beautiful legs, and sent it to Makoto. Makoto quickly replied, "Why are you sending me food pictures so late at night?" Akiko chuckled to herself. Then she remembered something. When she had pulled off the embrace and kill with sincerity move earlier, she had felt something sharp. Although her grades weren't the best, she had heard this saying, when you have a sharp weapon, the desire to kill arises naturally. For a teenage boy, that desire was even stronger. Akiko hadn't planned on doing anything too early, but she also knew that boys often felt uncomfortable if they held things in for too long. Would just using my hand work? But this kind of thing. I need to practice first, right? Her face flushed red, and late that night, she quietly sneaks over to the fridge. Sure enough, there were cucumbers bought by Nino for cooking. She took one. The next morning, as Nino was preparing breakfast for her sisters, she noticed something strange. The cucumbers were missing. Who took a bite? And so, she immediately suspected Itsuki. Chapter 30, hooking her with a curved smile. In the next 3 days, Makoto managed to complete all the tasks for the new club without delay. Aside from him, Akiko, Itsuki, and Yukino had all actively filled out their application forms. According to Akiko, Yotsuba might join this week, but she was unsure about the other two. During these 3 days, Akiko had received a role, so besides meeting Makoto at school, she was busy and could only chat online and, of course, sent him what she thought were well-taken photos of herself as a cute girl. Makoto's response was, "Your photography skills are still as average as ever." Whenever this happened, Akiko would take a picture of her beautiful legs and attach a line of text. "Since you're so good at taking pictures, why don't you come take one of me?" This was no longer an ordinary provocation. It was time for a heavy counterattack, an offline one-on-one takedown. Makoto already had a plan in mind. Mayu had also returned to normal these past few days. Whenever she saw him, she no longer had the shy, evasive gaze she had back then. After all, the fact that she personally made soy milk had made her quite shy. During this time, Makoto also received a call from his parents in this world. His father expressed that the Yukinoshita family from Chiba had visited several times, behaving very politely the entire time and frequently mentioning Makoto with an attitude of admiration. "That Yukinoshita lady is preparing to do business with us. I'm a little worried. Are you very familiar with their family?" His father, who was an ordinary employee, expressed concern. "Don't worry, because I have a very good relationship with the Yukinoshita family, and they genuinely want to help us," Makoto reassured. With his repeated assurances, his parents finally felt at ease. The actions of Mrs. Yukinoshita had indeed exceeded his expectations. He had thought that the beautiful lady would only occasionally invite him to dinner, and through those meals, try to get closer to Yukino. But who would have thought that Mrs. Yukinoshita's response would be so quick, going straight to attacking their family's crystal base? If things go as expected, the elders of the two families would interact more frequently, and due to their interest in mutual benefits, their relationship would improve even further. Due to the time loop, Makoto had become less concerned about money than he was before traveling through time. However, since Mrs. Yukinoshita was willing to help his family make money, he wouldn't turn her down. "And Yukinoshita has employed a siege strategy," Makoto remarked at lunch. Yukino, who had been dragged over to eat with him, looked up and said expressionlessly, "You've been secretly talking to my mother again." "Secretly?" "Yukinoshita, even though you're second in your grade, sometimes your word choice is really off," Makoto corrected. Yukino had long figured out his personality, so she chose to ignore him and continued, "What did you talk about with my mother?" "Not much, just that I could tell from her words that she probably wants me to join the Yukinoshita family." Yukino didn't respond this time. This was indeed something her mother would do. Therefore, she wasn't sure whether Makoto was joking. But she also had her own way of handling it. "So, you really want to marry into the family?" Makoto smiled. "I still stand by what I said. Why don't you marry into my family instead?" Yukino didn't blush this time. Instead, she smiled playfully. "If you're planning to court me now, I'm quite looking forward to your plan." "You're that eager?" "Although you're first in your grade, your word choice still isn't quite accurate," Yukino shot back. Then, she said leisurely, "You should know, after I've prepared myself mentally, the difficulty of you trying to court me has increased drastically." Makoto said, "It's okay, I can always go after Miss Haruno." Yukino's face froze. She couldn't help but sigh. If only you were more serious, I'd probably be really happy to have you as a friend. Makoto calmly replied, if I were that serious and uptight, I probably wouldn't have been able to survive the time loop. Yukino fell silent. After a moment, she quietly said, I overlooked that. She could sense Makoto's emotions. Those days must have been extremely tortuous for him. He wasn't wrong. If he were the uptight type, he probably would have gone crazy from the endless time loops. Yukino was about to change the topic when she noticed that Makoto seemed to be scrutinizing her. She couldn't help but ask, what's up? Makoto smiled, I just realized that the gentle version of Yukino Shita is even cuter than the shy version. Yukino put her hand to her forehead and looked at him with utter disdain. Can't you think of something serious to do besides these things? Speaking of which, I've already completed the short film plan for the club. Huh? Yukino hadn't expected the topic to change so quickly. But being an excellent girl, she immediately kept up with the conversation. I've checked the information these past few days. Even for just shooting a short film, there are many things to do. Makoto replied, I can handle all of it. Yukino was surprised. I've studied lighting, sound, directing, all those jobs. Going off to study again, huh? Yukino replied calmly, but in her heart, she couldn't help but feel a little impressed. She believed that the other party was not joking. But precisely because of that, she admired him even more. At this moment, Makoto remembered something. Oh right, I haven't thoroughly studied the soundtrack yet. Give me some time, I'll take care of it. He planned to handle this task during the time loop. Chapter 31, hooking her with a curved smile. 2. After lunch, Makoto returned to his class, while Yukino stood still for a moment, watching his back. After several seconds, Yukino withdrew her gaze. The two of them brought up the topic of marriage and entering the family again. But Yukino was becoming more and more uncertain about Makoto's attitude. Did he really want to pursue me, or was he just joking? If it's a joke, then why is he getting closer to my mother? What's the purpose behind that? Yukino didn't even realize that, from the beginning when she was only concerned with his talk about time loops. She gradually started to care whether he would pursue her. On the other hand, Makoto encountered someone on his way back. You had lunch with Yukino Shita again today. Has your relationship gotten that close, Fushimi? The beautiful Yumiko with striking golden hair blocked his way. Makoto didn't rush to answer and instead looked behind the girl a few times. Yumiko was confused by his attitude. What are you looking at? I'm looking for Hayama. Makoto replied. Huh? It's rare that Hayama isn't with you. Makoto said with a tone of surprise. Yumiko heard the teasing in his words, but to her surprise, she didn't feel embarrassed or irritated. It felt like a joke between good friends. She naturally didn't know that this was the influence of Mayu's aura. Hayato is with his friends. We were just discussing where to go after school. She said instinctively. Makoto looked at her pretty face and asked, so, just like the last few times, are you here to invite me? Yumiko was stunned, she hadn't thought of it that way. She had came to intercept Makoto because she had something to ask him. But as the words came to her lips, she unconsciously flicked her golden hair, wearing a confident smile. So, are you free after school? I still have time today. By the way, Mira, have you ever done any modeling? Makoto abruptly changed the subject. The reason he changed the subject was because the system had appeared. The host has triggered a random task. As a caring elder, you've encountered a seemingly strong-willed but actually delicate junior. How could you not take care of them? Please make an effort to become someone she trusts and admires, until she becomes completely molded by your influence. Task reward, Miro Yumiko's Queen Aura. The task difficulty had just increased. But making her become like me, isn't this a paid feature? Makoto thought to himself. Huh? Modeling? Yumiko looked confused, and the confident aura she had just displayed instantly froze. She shook her head and said, not at all. Makoto tapped his chin, thinking. Then it must have been my imagination. Just now, when I saw you stand here, I felt like I really wanted to capture that moment. Yumiko opened her red lips, about to speak, but then heard Makoto, as if talking to himself, saying. Normally, only exceptionally beautiful girls with a strong personal style would give me that feeling. Have you studied photography? Yumiko asked in surprise. I've actually studied quite a bit. To be honest, I'm quite good at taking pictures for others. Makoto said. Perhaps because of his friendly aura, Yumiko didn't feel any suspicion. Remembering the compliments Makoto had given her earlier, she felt a sense of pride. Especially since he interacted with Yukino, the widely acknowledged beauty, every day, yet he still held such a high opinion of her. That made her even happier. Although she had many admirers in class and was even nicknamed Queen due to her strong personality, Her popularity still paled in comparison to Yukino and Utaha. "Do you want to go hang out after school?" Yumiko took the initiative to invite. By now, she had completely forgotten why she had originally approached Makoto. She just thought he was handsome, had a pleasant voice, and was often mentioned by Hayato. His approachable aura made her enjoy being around him. Seeing her happy expression, Makoto thought, "It's so easy to get you hooked, interesting." He had of course interacted with Yumiko during the time loop. This girl, who seemed rash and strong-willed, was actually very fragile inside. Such a personality has a professional term in the eyes of experienced people: contrast. The beauty of a girl with a contrast often has a unique charm all her own. When they show this unique contrast, that subtle attraction begins to take hold. To put it another way, this visit carries some risk. Proceed with caution. Makoto, proceed with the visit. It wasn't until they returned to the classroom that Yumiko suddenly remembered that she had originally wanted to ask Makoto about the club, but in the end, she had completely forgotten. After school, including Makoto, Hayato's popular group consisted of 6 people. Hayato expressed his surprise that Makoto accepted the invitation. "I thought you didn't like group activities." Makoto casually replied, "I don't actually mind going out with friends. I've just been busy lately, and since I didn't have any club activities today, I agreed." He added, "To sum it up, I seem to be busy every day but don't know exactly what I'm busy with." Hayato stared at Makoto blankly. He seemed to have thought of something, and after 2 seconds, he turned to look at his friends, murmuring, "I guess I'm the same." Yumiko suggested that they go shopping first, to check out the usual lively stores. No one had any objections. Just as the group was leaving the school, Makoto spotted 2 familiar figures at the corner. It was Nino and Itsuki. Chapter 32. This move really makes it hard to hold on. Nino had been waiting specifically for Makoto. After school today, she had sent Miku and Yotsuba home first, and then she called Itsuki to wait for Makoto's arrival. She didn't have any other purpose, it was just that her curiosity and concern for her sisters couldn't be controlled, and she wanted to find out the relationship between Makoto and Akika. She had called Itsuki along because the latter had a good relationship with Makoto, and with Itsuki there, Nino felt she could perform better. Simply put, she considered Itsuki as a support character to enhance her role as the main one. "Fushimi-kun, what's going on with you two?" Nino spoke first while holding Itsuki's hand. "I've made plans to go out with Hayama and the others." "Are you waiting for someone?" Makoto guessed that they were waiting for him, though he wasn't sure of the exact reason. "We're waiting for you." Nino hesitated. With others around, it wasn't easy to be the main one. Itsuki suddenly asked, "Fushimi-kun, are you going to have dinner with your friends?" Makoto shook his head. "I'll be home before dinner." He had plans with Mayu to go to that beautiful teacher's house for dinner. Nino's gaze flickered when she heard this, and she felt like she could join them. Only Makoto and Hayato noticed this, but since Hayato wasn't familiar with the Nakano girls, he didn't speak up. So Makoto sent out a team invitation, "Then let's walk together. How about we chat while we walk?" He looked towards Yumiko and the others, silently asking for their opinions. "Sure." Yumiko didn't refuse. She had a good impression of Makoto. He didn't make decisions on his own, like pulling Nino and Itsuki into the group. Instead, he first asked her opinion. He seems like a careful guy, just like Hayato. Yumiko thought. Seeing this, Nino also agreed. Now, the happy group had 2 more members, making it even livelier than before. However, after some exchanges, Makoto realized something: Nino and Yumiko didn't get along. In some ways, the 2 girls were similar. Both had impulsive and fiery personalities, yet their inner feelings were very delicate. The difference was that Nino handled things skillfully, seeming to be fiery and fast-paced, yet even boys her age respected her. Yumiko, on the other hand, lacked basic social skills. Her attitude towards people outside her friend group was nearly harsh. So, after only a few brief exchanges, the atmosphere became a bit awkward. Thankfully, Makoto and Hayato were able to smooth things over. Nino intentionally pulled Itsuki back behind the group and tugged at Makoto's sleeve. Makoto slowed his pace, then quietly asked, "What's up?" He thought Nino was going to explain why she was waiting for him today. But to his surprise, Nino frowned and whispered, "Are you close with Miura?" "We're just acquaintances. I get along pretty well with Hayama." Makoto answered truthfully. Nino relaxed her brows and pouted, "That's good. You two don't get along?" "Not really. I've heard some things about her before. She's quite famous at school, but I don't like her." Nino was very direct. Makoto nodded. "So, what's the reason you're looking for me today?" Nino hesitated again. Now wasn't the right time to talk about Akika's feelings. But if she didn't ask now, she had a feeling the day would be wasted. She still needed to go home and cook for the kids. In the end, it was Itsuki who spoke up. Have you seen Akiko these past few days? Makoto, we saw each other at school, but I haven't seen her after school. Same here. She's been acting all mysterious lately. I don't even know what she's busy with. Itsuki sighed. Nino suddenly cut in. Akiko seems to have developed a late-night snack habit recently. Late-night snacks? Makoto and Itsuki looked confused. Nino didn't hide it. The cucumbers I use for cooking are missing one every day. At first, I thought Itsuki was eating them, but then I found out it was Akiko who took them. Itsuki blushed awkwardly. Why would you doubt me? Nino calmly replied. Who else in the house is so obsessed with food besides you? Itsuki, red-faced, was about to argue when Makoto timely interrupted. Actually, the thing Akiko's been hiding from you, the answer is in the club we formed. The two girls were stunned simultaneously. Nino unconsciously puffed out her chest, turning to look at Itsuki. So, you've known this whole time? Itsuki, with a confused look on her face, known what? You've joined Fushimi-san's club, right? Yeah, but I didn't know that. Nino was completely thrown off. Itsuki's confused expression didn't seem like an act. Makoto didn't seem like he was lying either. So, was Itsuki just too slow? Nino thought to herself. The group first strolled along the roadside shops, and the variety of products easily piqued the girls' interest. Even Nino and Itsuki were no exception. After about 15 minutes of shopping, Yumiko led the group to a nearby park. This park has a great atmosphere. Many girls come here to take photos. Yumiko said, her eyes fixed on Makoto. Clearly, the professional photography skills Makoto had mentioned earlier piqued her curiosity. Seeing that Makoto didn't respond, she bluntly said, you should be able to take my photo, right? There was no please help me or anything polite, she was more direct. Makoto seemed oblivious. I can, but you have to follow my instructions throughout. Eh? Yumiko was momentarily stunned. This wasn't the scenario she had imagined. Makoto looked very serious. Photography is an art. Even though we only have phones and not professional equipment, which means we can't capture your charm as accurately, I take photography very seriously. The phrase can't capture your charm as accurately instantly made Yumiko's heart flutter. He was talking about the equipment, but still managed to compliment her. That made her happy. Yumiko immediately agreed, okay, I'll follow your instructions. The two boys who were originally playing on their phones beside Hayato were now distracted and quietly muttering, this guy seems to really know his stuff. Learn something. Hayato, however, wasn't concerned. With his emotional intelligence, he quickly thought of similar things to say. He was more curious about Makoto neglecting the Tunikana girls. Was that not a bit inappropriate? In fact, Nino was indeed a bit annoyed at that moment. But it wasn't directed at Makoto. It was at Yumiko. Asking someone to take photos without any courtesy, was she really acting like a queen? Nina remembered the nickname her classmates had for Yumiko. She was about to ask Itsuki's opinion but saw her spacing out next to her. What are you thinking? Nino couldn't help but ask. Itsuki looked nostalgic. No wonder he was so serious when taking our photos last time. This is what he was thinking. Photography is an art, and it does sound very reasonable. Wait, you two took photos together? Nino was more concerned with this. Itsuki picked up her phone and said. He insisted on taking my photo last time. But he actually took really good photos. I really like the ones he took. Oh, by the way. She remembered something and tapped on her phone screen. I also saw a photo of Akiko and him online. It was probably taken that day in the bookstore. Nino quickly leaned over and saw a post on a social forum with Makoto and Akiko's photo. In the photo, Akiko had a beautiful smile, and Makoto was focused on holding the phone. The caption read, this famous bookstore has wild handsome guys and beautiful girls. Though everyone online knows that taking sneaky photos is illegal, there are always people who upload others' videos or photos, most of which are accidents or fights. Nino, after reading the post, unintentionally glanced at the most liked comment. Then she couldn't hold back anymore. The comment said, although I don't know these two people and don't know if they're a couple, I think they look great together. Does anyone else feel the same way? Nina recognized this account immediately. It was clearly Akiko's alt account. This move was really hard to ignore. Itsuki, send me a screenshot of this post. After saying that, Nino turned her attention back to Makoto. Yumiko was already posing as per Makoto's instructions. Chapter 33, are you done showing off? It's my turn now. At this moment, Yumiko felt a little strange. Usually, within her social circle, everyone was willing to listen to her arrangements. Outside of her group, classmates also viewed her with respect and admiration. Since the start of the school year, she had been surrounded by this queen aura. But now, she found herself following Makoto's instructions throughout, posing like a robot, obediently following his every command. She thought that with her looks and figure, as long as she avoided awkward candid shots, no matter how she was photographed, she should look beautiful. However, Makoto wasn't satisfied with her initial self-directed attempts. She should have spoken up, but for some reason, whether it was because of Makoto's approachable demeanor or his serious and focused expression, she didn't have the heart to interrupt him. "Humphrey, I'll see if you're really that skilled." Yumiko unknowingly developed a bit of a competitive mindset, typical for young girls. "Miura-san, your smile is too confident. It needs to be a bit softer, like a gentle feeling. You should understand, right?" After Makoto's careful direction, Yumiko's photos were finally taken. She let out a deep breath, as if she had just completed a long-distance run. At that very moment, Makoto raised his phone again, and with a click, he took another photo. "Eh? Didn't we already finish?" Yumiko looked up when she heard the shutter sound. Makoto waved at her, "Come take a look." Yumiko crossed her arms as she walked over. "If you've made me look bad in the photo, I'm going to say it straight." "Makoto, don't worry, General, let's see this picture." Yumiko, filled with questions, leaned in. She took a quick glance at the photo on the phone, and instantly felt surprised. "He made me look so good." And all of them were in a gentle, feminine style. The lighting and angle were perfect, and the photos felt completely different from my self-eyes. Yumiko's eyes sparkled, and her lips curved into a smile. "No wonder you had me find angles and pay attention to subtle expressions. So this is how you took the photos? Are you satisfied?" "Very satisfied." Yumiko emphasized the words, her smile widening. She truly liked the photos. Usually, her self-eyes had that seemingly confident smile, but Makoto had captured a completely different style of her. Girls who love beauty are always happy when they get beautiful pictures of themselves. Especially when it's a style they've never seen before. "I carefully selected them, and there are 4 photos that are up to standard," Makoto said at that moment. Yumiko was stunned. "4? But I like all 7 of these. The other 3 didn't meet my requirements," Makoto said seriously. "You should remember, right? I said photography is an art." Oh, I understand." Seeing him suddenly become serious, Yumiko instinctively nodded in agreement. There was no way around it. Makoto made her look so good that she had every reason to believe him. Yumiko certainly wanted those photos, but it was only now that she realized Makoto was using his own phone. "So, the blonde girl raised her phone. Let's exchange contact information, and then you can send me those 4 photos." Makoto, however, said, "I'll send you 2 photos first." Yumiko was puzzled. "Why only 2? I think the other 2 still have room for improvement. Once I've edited them, I'll send them to you." "You can do that too?" Yumiko's face lit up with surprise. Makoto's expression remained unchanged. "Only by doing this will you keep thinking about them." Yumiko thought to herself, "This guy is so thoughtful." Among all the people she knew, only Hayato was this considerate. But Hayato definitely didn't have such good photography skills. Like most boys, when he took photos, he just aimed for a human shape. And that was enough. Girls like Yumiko, who care about beauty, would definitely not be satisfied with such a barely human photo approach. Girls, after meeting different boys, occasionally make comparisons in their hearts. It's not malicious, it's just an unconscious action. So, after comparing Makoto with the boys she knew, Yumiko quickly realized that Makoto was the one who surprised her the most. Hayato was also a good guy, but he had one sharp flaw. Whenever they were around their classmates, he was always just Hayato to everyone, never belonging to anyone in particular. This warm-hearted approach to life easily created a subtle sense of distance. It wasn't just the girls who felt this, even the boys who admired Hayato and wanted to be his best buddies felt the same way. For example, right now, seeing the others distracted, Hayato took the group for a walk in the park. "Thank you, Fushimi-san," Yumiko said sincerely. "It was just a small favor," Makoto replied. Yumiko gazed at his handsome face and smiled brightly. "From now on, you can call me Yumiko. By the way, what do your friends usually call you?" "Makoto, everyone is really polite to me and calls me Makoto." "Yumiko." The girl rolled her eyes at him and said to herself, "Then I'll call you Makoto-kun. We're friends now, so this way it won't feel awkward." Meanwhile, Nino, who had been watching from behind, now had a completely tense look on her beautiful face. She just called him Makoto-kun like that? Nino muttered in annoyance. She knew very well that she and Yumiko weren't enemies. The reason she was annoyed was purely because she had met Makoto earlier than Yumiko. And this boy happened to fit her aesthetic preferences. Most importantly, Makoto also had a close relationship with her older sister. Now, seeing the somewhat well-known Yumiko in school act so boldly, she instantly felt uncomfortable. Itsuki gave Nino a helpless look and said softly, "Keep your voice down. It wouldn't be good if others heard that." Nino, seeing her younger sister disapprove, snapped, "Don't you feel bothered? He's your friend, and he's really close with Akika too." But Itsuki replied quietly, "Nino, you're getting too worked up. Haven't you noticed? Fushimi's attitude toward Mira-san is completely just polite, like between regular classmates." Nino was stunned. Itsuki continued, "I can easily tell that the way he treats Mira-san and the way he treats me is different. Because he was willing to tell me Akika's secret right away. And even invited me to join the club before Akika did. That kind of connection clearly feels like a close friendship." Even though Itsuki felt that the reason Makoto was so kind to her was probably because of Akika, she still felt happy about it. "Is that so?" Nino asked uncertainty, once again looking toward the two of them. Yumiko held her phone, happily admiring the photos for a while, then suddenly said, "Should I tie my hair up and take a few more shots?" "Tie it up?" Makoto looked at her golden locks. "Yeah, what do you think about a high ponytail? I used to wear that style. A high ponytail is great. Very cool." "Cool?" Yumiko blinked, feeling that the word didn't suit a beautiful girl. Makoto gave a thumbs up. "Totally. Like the Wind Swordsman. Super cool." Yumiko. Looking at the stunned expression on the girl's face, Makoto wanted to laugh. He could tell that Yumiko was very satisfied with his photography skills, and also, because of the deliberate thoughtfulness he displayed, she couldn't help but want to learn more about him. In other words, while she was trying to get to know Makoto better, she also hoped he'd get to know her better. Only then could Yumiko fully display her queen charm at school. However, Makoto had a different thought about that. "Are you done showing off? Then it's my turn." He smiled and said, "Let's save the next photo shoot for another time." "Why?" "Because beautiful things are best saved a little. Only then can they surprise you again next time." Yumiko stared at Makoto, slightly dazed. After 2 seconds, her cheeks inexplicably turned a little red. She touched her fair chin and happily said, "You really have a way with words." "All right, next time it is." Makoto responded with a polite smile. Then he turned around, his gaze landing on Nino. "Nino, do you want to take a photo?" he asked. "He actually just called me Nino?" Nino was still thinking about that, then asked in surprise, "Why me?" Makoto pointed at Itsuki. "Among the 3 girls here, you're the only one I haven't photographed yet. That feels a little regretful to me. I'd like to fix that soon." "Regretful?" "You heard what I said just now, right? Beautiful things should be preserved a little. So I want to preserve this moment now." Makoto explained. Yumiko, who had been happily looking at her photos, froze. "Wait, you can explain it like that?" "Makoto, I hold the final say on the explanation. I'll interpret it however I want." Nino's face flushed slightly, and her heart stirred a little. After all, Itsuki had praised Makoto's photography skills to her many times. She also saw Yumiko's reaction just now. He clearly took some amazing pictures. At that moment, Itsuki gently nudged her. "Go ahead. Mira-san wasn't wrong. This park is popular with girls for photo shoots. Even some of my classmates have come here." She could tell Nino wanted to take photos. "That's what you call the Nino I pushed forward." Chapter 34, Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and Nino finally got her photo session as she had wished. Since he didn't have any professional equipment, Makoto had pushed his phone camera to its limits. Lighting and angles. These were all things he had studied seriously during his time loops. He still used his own phone to take the pictures. So when Nino saw those incredibly satisfying photos of herself, it felt natural to exchange contact info with Makoto. In other words, Makoto now had the contact information of 3 of the 5 sisters. So what Itsuki said was true. "Your photography is amazing." Nino smiled happily as she received the photos. Itsuki also leaned in for a look. The quality was still excellent, on par with the one she had gotten before. "Can I take a look too?" Yumiko spoke up then. For some reason, seeing this girl she didn't quite like taking the initiative to ask gave Nino a strange sense of satisfaction. She was in a great mood now and agreed immediately. As Yumiko looked through the photos, her attention gradually shifted from the overall beauty of the shots to Nino's chest. All of the pictures taken by Makoto were decent and tasteful. Not only capturing the girls at their best angles but also subtly highlighting the attractive curves of their figures. It was the same for the photos on Yumiko's own phone. The problem, however, was that Nino's figure was too good. Yumiko sneaked a glance at Itsuki. As expected, both of these sisters were classic examples of slim waist, full bust. Tiny waists, long legs, large chests. And all with beautiful faces. She even thought back to Akika's figure and realized it was the same. That left her feeling very unbalanced. Normally, her own figure was considered great. Well-proportioned, clearly defined curves, and long legs. But the Nakano girls were simply born gifted. This time, Yumiko had literally run into a naturally talented opponent. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't win. "Are you done looking?" Nino's voice sounded. "I'm done." Yumiko quickly averted her gaze, biting her lip in frustration. Nino caught every bit of that reaction, which made her even more pleased. Though she couldn't quite describe it, she was definitely enjoying herself. Only Makoto really understood why. From the moment he deliberately brought up beautiful things, he had been performing a kind of linguistic art. You could also call it the art of push and pull. He first drew the girl's attention and curiosity, then, at the key moment, pulled Yumiko away and brought Nino into the spotlight. Nino and Yumiko hadn't exactly had a pleasant interaction today, yet both were beautiful girls and had both been photographed by Makoto. Naturally, once they received their photos, a bit of rivalry was bound to emerge. Nino didn't get to see Yumiko's photos, but she saw the reaction, which was enough to satisfy her. Yumiko felt crushed by someone born with such natural assets, but she remembered she still had 2 photos on Makoto's phone, waiting to be refined before being sent to her. That meant she still had cards to play. Her mood lifted a bit. However, both girls noticed one detail: Makoto hadn't said anything about editing Nino's photos. So, was it because Nino was naturally stunning and didn't need any editing? Or was it because Makoto was giving Yumiko extra attention? That question floated into both of their minds at the same time, but neither of them dared to ask. Makoto pretended not to notice and started chatting with Itsuki about the nearby food street. The 2 girls, thinking the same thing, happened to glance at each other. Their eyes met. Then, in an oddly synchronized moment, they both looked away. Interesting. Makoto noticed and found it quite amusing. A while later, he saw Hayato's group approaching from the park, and took the chance to say, "Yumiko, I should get going. Hope you all have a good time." Yumiko blurted out, "Why don't you have dinner with us?" "I already told my family. I'll be eating out tonight." Makoto shook his head. "But I have to eat at home." "Sorry." "Fine then." Her longing only grew deeper. Makoto quickly added, "I'll send the photos to you tonight." Yumiko instantly lit up with a hopeful smile. "Got it. See you tomorrow." Her emotions were completely in his hands. "See you tomorrow." Makoto turned and walked off. Nino and Itsuki followed. They were headed in the same direction. "I have a question for you." Nino had been waiting for a moment without outsiders. Now that it came, she couldn't hold back any longer. Makoto put on a curious face. "What question?" Nino looked him in the eye. "Why did you specifically mention editing Yumiko's photos, but didn't say anything about mine?" Itsuki also looked over, intrigued. But Makoto wasn't about to answer directly. "What do you think?" Nino frowned. "I'm the one asking you." Makoto looked puzzled. "I thought you already guessed the answer." Nino froze for a moment. Her eyes began to sparkle. "It's because I don't need editing, right? See, girls who like to overthink will always find the best interpretation for themselves. Beautiful girls are all well aware of their appearance advantages, so when it comes to matters of looks, they naturally assume they're the superior ones." But Makoto hadn't said anything at all. "That's what you call push and pull," he thought smugly. Itsuki, as the bystander, was a bit more clear-headed. She hesitated slightly and asked, "Is that really the reason?" Nino didn't even give Makoto a chance to speak. She lifted her chin, puffed out her chest, and said with a hint of pride, "What else?" "Itsuki, don't tell me you think we're not pretty enough." "It's not that. I just think Fushimi must have his reasons for doing that." "His reason is exactly what I said." Nino smiled happily, and even turned to Makoto and added, "Right?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Makoto gave the perfect answer, "The 5 of you are all beautiful." "That's just a fact." Nino felt another wave of satisfaction. Itsuki, a little embarrassed, thanked him, secretly pleased as well. It wasn't until they parted ways that Nino, watching Makoto's figure gradually disappear into the distance, suddenly slapped her forehead. "Damn it, I forgot to ask about him and Akika." Itsuki looked surprised. "I thought you decided to give up. You clearly had the chance just now, but you never brought it up." Nino's cheeks flushed red. "I just got completely lost in all those compliments." Elsewhere, Makoto first returned home and called Mrs. Yuki Noshida. He hoped she could help him find a music composition teacher. He wanted to start learning in that area. Mrs. Yuki Noshida agreed immediately. "I should be able to get back to you in about half an hour." Sure enough, it was less than 30 minutes before she called back with high efficiency, telling Makoto everything was arranged. The lessons will be scheduled for the weekends. As for the fees, you don't need to worry about them. You've helped me twice now. I should repay the favor. No need to wait for the weekend. Tomorrow is fine. Tomorrow? You're skipping class? Or are you planning to go after school? I'm taking a day off tomorrow. Of course Makoto was taking a day off. He was preparing to enter a time loop again. After successfully getting the music teacher's contact info from Mrs. Yuki Noshida, he changed clothes and went to Mayu's home for dinner. More accurately, he helped her cook. After dinner, Mayu happily sat with him in the living room watching TV and casually expressed her concern about the club. Everything's going well. As for club activities, I plan to officially start on the weekend, since Ikig has been a bit busy lately. What's that? As Makoto was speaking, his gaze happened to fall on the sofa cushion. Right in the center between him and Mayu, there was a conspicuous strand of curly hair. Very short, curly hair. What are you looking at? Seeing him fall silent, Mayu also glanced down. Makoto picked up the strand, thinking its length didn't match Mayu's hair. So this must be. His expression changed. Mayu hadn't thought much of it, but upon seeing his strange reaction, and recalling the odd dreams she sometimes had at night, the beautiful teacher immediately blushed and murmured, flustered, "Don't get the wrong idea. That's not mine, because I don't even have any." That was quite a loaded statement. Makoto thought to himself. That day in the bathroom, Mayu had covered herself so thoroughly that he hadn't been able to see anything, even if he'd wanted to. Still flustered, Mayu explained quickly. "It must be from Miss Shizuka. She stayed over at my place last night. And after taking a bath, she didn't even wear pajamas. Just wrapped herself in a towel and sat on the sofa chatting with me. She didn't hesitate at all to tell the truth." But what Makoto cared about more was something else entirely. Azure dragon, vermilion bird, black tortoise. What was the fourth divine beast again? So hard to remember. Chapter 35. That day, he finally saw the light after that little episode. The pleasant atmosphere in the living room was now laced with a touch of ambiguity. Makoto, seeing how Mayu's entire face had turned a vivid, rosy red from embarrassment, sensibly decided to change the topic. Some things were better left at just a hint. The truth behind the four guardian beasts would have to wait. Since Mayu had mentioned Hiratsuka Shizuka, Makoto naturally steered the conversation toward that other beautiful teacher. "One night, I passed by the park and saw Hiratsuka-sensei drinking alone. She looked really down." Mayu was visibly surprised. "That actually happened?" Then she muttered to herself, "I've always admired how carefree she is at school. I didn't think she'd be so overwhelmed in private." "Overwhelmed?" Makoto looked at her. Mayu answered as if it were obvious. "Yeah, Shizuka-sensei doesn't have a boyfriend. She mentioned it to me once. She gets along well with her family, so I figure the stress must be work-related." Makoto thought to himself, so she doesn't know about Hiratsuka Shizuka's secret matchmaking sessions. But that made sense. Mayu had such a gentle nature. She wasn't the type to go digging into others' personal matters. Even when the two of them hung out or chatted, it was probably always Hiratsuka Shizuka who set the pace. "You just said you admired Hiratsuka-sensei?" Makoto was good at picking up key points. Mayu smiled shyly. "I've always admired her carefree and confident aura. Oh, let me tell you a secret." She rarely showed such girlish expressions. Leaning in close with a mysterious air, she whispered. "Hiratsuka-sensei is really strong. I think she must train regularly. She doesn't talk much about that kind of stuff, but I've paid close attention. If it ever came to a fight, I bet 2 or 3 men wouldn't even be able to touch her." Makoto thought, isn't that something Officer Dan would say? Still, her girlish demeanor really was charming. Mayu muttered with admiration, "If only I were that strong. Unfortunately, the only exercise I've been able to stick with is yoga." "Yoga, huh? That's pretty good too." Makoto imagined her in a tight-fitting yoga outfit. "Oh man, with that figure, she'd make anyone's head turn in yoga gear." He added, "If you really want to work out, don't rush into it. I'll put together a detailed plan for you first." "You know how to do that too?" "Yeah, because I work out regularly myself." Hearing that, Mayu recalled the way he looked that day coming out of her bathroom. Hey! His body really was solid. Her cheeks flushed at the memory. Makoto pretended not to notice. "I'll get the plan done soon. If you run into anything confusing while training, just ask me anytime." Then, sincerely, he added, "Seriously, I'm on call for you. If you say it like that, then I'll believe you." Mayu smiled with eyes like crescents. "Absolutely lovely. Don't worry, this time I'm not joking." Makoto continued, changing the subject. "By the way, I'm taking tomorrow off." Mayu immediately showed concern. "Why? Are you feeling unwell?" "No, I just have something to take care of." "That's good to hear. It was clear her heart was truly invested in him. Hearing that he was fine, she relaxed right away. It was a curious feeling. Looking at her beautiful face, Makoto suddenly had an idea. Matsuke-sensei, would you be interested in learning something new? Learning what? Mayu asked curiously. For example, our club is going to shoot a short film or maybe short videos. You could tag along and learn with us. I'd be your personal instructor the whole time. Huh? Mayu was clearly caught off guard. Why bring this up all of a sudden? Makoto answered earnestly, I just realized it. My club advisor. She shouldn't just have a couple of tricks up her sleeve. She ought to be even more capable. Mayu's cheeks turned pink. What do you mean, my advisor? Aren't I already the official advisor to your club? Or have I already become your personal, exclusive one? But the words that came out of her mouth were soft and gentle. Okay, I'll do as you say. At that moment, she looked incredibly sweet and obedient. She probably didn't even realize that her unintentional girlish charm was her most alluring quality. Not to mention, her figure was stunning. They were sitting side by side on the same couch, already close. As they chatted, Mayu unconsciously leaned in closer. Her hips were wide and her waist-to-hip curve was nothing short of breathtaking. In this posture, she was even more alluring. Why are you staring at me like that? She asked shyly, lowering her voice. Of course, she wasn't clueless. She could feel Makoto's intense gaze. Embarrassed, but also secretly happy. Makoto quickly looked away, turning his attention to the exaggerated laughter coming from the TV show. I'm thinking of taking a bath. Is that okay here? Mayu didn't hesitate at all. With a smile, she said, of course. Want me to get you some clothes? Then Makoto casually said, if you throw in a back scrubbing service, that'd be perfect? Mayu froze on the spot. The living room suddenly went quiet. Only the sound of the TV remained. I'll go run the bath. In the end, she softly said that with a flushed face, then quickly got up and left. But Makoto knew. She had agreed. In the bathroom, Mayu touched her burning cheeks, realizing how nervous she was again. And a little excited. Ever since that last time she scrubbed his back, she'd occasionally had strange dreams. The male lead in her dream, of course, was that person. Even though we agreed last time it would be the last. But she bit her lip, her beautiful eyes flickering with hesitation. After a while, she whispered to herself, this time will be the last. But she hadn't realized that the label disqualified had long since been stuck to her. That night, Makoto once again experienced Mayu's incredibly gentle backwashing service. And this time, he finally saw the light. He saw the one among the 4 divine beasts who was the most attractive to men. All he could say was, as expected of the 4 divine beasts. So divine, and yet so beastly. Just seeing her felt like sensing the might of a tiger's roar. Makoto didn't return home until 9 p.m. He had originally wanted to stay a bit longer and keep her company. After all, the divine beast had been startled by a tangible hand and was still shaken. She needed someone by her side. But this time, Mayu was embarrassed to the extreme and simply pushed him out the door. Still, just before the front door closed, her voice, as soft as a mosquito's hum, pitifully said, it's not like there won't be another chance. Go home and rest for now. As soon as Makoto left, Mayu finally returned to the sofa, and with a thump, collapsed limply. Her dazed eyes were practically trailing threads. That guy's really bad. Always getting handsy. She muttered to herself. But she also understood that if she hadn't been willing, how could Makoto have taken advantage of her? Besides, that kind of sensation was completely different from what she could achieve on her own. Even more thrilling. And far easier too. The variety show playing on TV had reached a key moment. A guest who had been sitting calmly by the pool was suddenly ejected from their chair. Amid the guest's panicked scream, the production team maliciously slowed down the footage, capturing the guest's face in midair frame by frame. Likewise, thanks to the slow motion, the splashing water when the guest hit the pool looked even more dramatic. Mayu stared intently at the splashes, completely entranced. Then suddenly, her phone rang. Snapping out of her trance, Mayu saw it was a call from Shizuka. Mayu, let's have lunch together tomorrow, okay? I found a newly opened ramen place today. It's doing great business. I bet the taste is amazing. Sure, sounds great. Huh? What's with your voice? Did you catch a cold? No. I'm fine. Startled, Mayu replied guiltily. She knew full well that her pent-up emotions had finally been let out, and her voice was at its weirdest right now. Oh. Okay, as long as you're fine. Shizuka responded with a slightly curious tone. But in her heart, she was thinking, Mayu's voice right now. Why does it sound exactly like mine after I deal with my own loneliness alone? That's right, it must be just like that. The more they talked, the more Shizuka. Single for many years. was convinced. But in truth, she was only half right. Mayu had someone by her side, while Hiratsuka Shizuka only had battery-powered toys for company. Chapter 36. This strike pierces the stars. 6 a.m. the next morning. Makoto was in the kitchen making breakfast. He had already decided how he was going to spend today. Yukino's task reward was a multiplied increase in progress speed, while Akika's reward was a boost in harvest capacity. And the system had just given him a badge called Old Geezer Comeback Badge. This meant that the rules for his training during the time loop were simple: as long as it didn't kill him, he'd push himself to the limit. Worst case, he'd just reset and start over. Just as he finished breakfast, Yukino sent a greeting message: "Good morning, Fushimi-kun." Since she had promised to say hello every day, Yukino wasn't going to go back on her word. Once Mayu woke up, Makoto brought breakfast over to her place. Since yesterday was her first time experiencing an emergency wash-up, and also her first time encountering Makoto's tangible hand, she was surely still feeling shy this morning. Luckily, Makoto was good at lightening the mood. Over the course of breakfast, Mayu gradually returned to her usual self. Though every now and then, she'd zone out while staring at Makoto's fingers. So slender, so dexterous. No wonder I surrendered the defeat CG so quickly. Mayu's thoughts were running wild again. Makoto pretended not to notice. He'd already seen her apartment layout during the last time loop, but back then, she had just gotten out of the shower and was still wearing underwear. Yesterday was different. There was a kind of beauty with absolutely nothing hidden. In plain terms, full view secured. Once she left for school, Makoto returned to his house and decisively initiated the time loop. Host has initiated the time loop. 1 trial card was consumed. No points deducted. Note 1, tasks cannot be triggered during a time loop. Note 2, host can freely end or restart this day. Note 3, as the host has completed the beginner task, any target's memory may be preserved during the time loop. Oh? A new feature? Compared to when he first transmigrated and was forced into the loop, Makoto was in a great mood this time. He started with aerobic exercises at home, and only when the music teacher arranged by Mrs. Yukino Shita contacted him did he shower and head out. He spent the whole morning studying. At lunch, he received quite a few messages. From Akika, from Itsuki, and from Yumeko. He replied to them all. The last one came from Yukino. "Yukino, I just ran into Akika-san. She said you didn't come to school today." "Makoto, I'm busy with something important." "Yukino, what important thing?" "Makoto, I'm busy with something important." "Yukino?" Makoto smirked. "I've been dropping hints, haven't I? When we're discussing serious matters, I'd appreciate it if you'd use the proper title for me." Yukino didn't reply. Makoto remained calm as ever and continued typing. "Or are you planning to go back on your word?" 2 minutes later, Yukino finally responded, "Big brother." She even added an angry panda sticker afterward. Clearly, she'd been struggling internally. "Makoto, text messages are meaningless." "Yukino, what do you mean?" That simple line made Makoto picture her furious little face. But he wasn't fazed by this kind of thing. He immediately called her. 3 seconds later, Yukino picked up. "What do you mean?" Her voice held absolutely no attempt to hide her anger. "Makoto, when discussing serious matters, please use the appropriate form of address." He instantly heard Yukino take a deep breath. The next moment, her voice came cold and sharp. "Do you think this is funny? Does my tone sound like I'm joking?" Makoto replied seriously. Yukino ignored him. Makoto suddenly asked, "Have you been studying film production on your own recently?" This time, Yukino responded, her voice clearly uneasy. "You figured it out again?" Makoto didn't answer. "How about this? I'll compile some of my own experience and send it to you. It should help." Yukino's voice remained cold. "And the price?" Makoto replied, "There's no need for one. If you want to improve, I'll help. I've spent a long time researching this field. With my help, your efficiency will be much higher." "That simple?" "That's simple." There was silence on the other end for a while, before Yukino finally spoke, sounding incredibly embarrassed. "You win, Fushimi." Then, even more bashfully, she softly said, "Big brother." Makoto, "Ha ha ha, you're so cute, bro." Yukino, "Fushimi, you're so dead." The call ended. Makoto happily returned to his studies. That afternoon, after finishing his lessons, he made a trip to the supermarket. He needed to buy ingredients to have dinner with Mayu. As he was leaving the supermarket, he happened to run into Nino, who was also out shopping. The girl looked pleasantly surprised. "What a coincidence." "Yeah, it really is." Makoto naturally followed up with a question. "You girls are 5 sisters. Why are you the only one out shopping?" Nino puffed out her full chest and smiled with confidence and pride. If they had come with me, they would have only gotten in my way. Makoto said, I see. So your housekeeping skills are maxed out. Everyone likes compliments, but Nino had something more pressing on her mind. By the way, how come you just called me by my name? If you don't like it, I can change that. That's not what I meant. I'm just curious. We haven't even met that many times, have we? Seeing her puzzled expression, Makoto replied straightforwardly, because I want to become friends with all 5 of you as soon as possible. Nino was taken aback. Why's that? Think about it. If I become friends with all 5 of you early on, then if I accidentally make one of you mad later, I can ask the other 4 for help. That's even a thing? Nino couldn't help but laugh. I mean, you seem like a decent guy, but if that kind of situation really happened, I definitely wouldn't help you. Makoto put on a thoughtful expression. In other words, I haven't offered you enough benefits yet. Let me think. That's not the issue. As they were chatting, a loud engine roar suddenly came from behind. Both Makoto and Nino turned to look. 2 flashy motorcycles were speeding down the street, their riders shouting excitedly. From the sound and sight of it, it was clear they were just some thrill-seeking punks with too much free time. One of the bikes zoomed past dangerously close to Makoto, nearly brushing against him. If he had taken just 2 steps outward, he would have definitely been hit. Their reckless behavior was outrageous. Many pedestrians around were startled and yelled out angry comments. Nino, pale from the scare, looked at Makoto. Are you okay? I'm fine. Makoto gestured to reassure her. Nino breathed a sigh of relief and glared in the direction the motorcycles disappeared. Those guys are the worst. I've seen people like that on the news before. If they don't care about their lives, they should go race somewhere deserted. Makoto explained, it's precisely because it's crowded here. Seeing everyone get scared gives them a sense of satisfaction. Nino was still fuming. Idiots. Good thing you didn't get hit. Makoto also looked in the direction the bikes had gone. He was someone who held grudges. Even if he got injured in a time loop, he could just reset and be fully healed again. But the thing was, he didn't come into this time loop just to get bullied. He came to be king. So over the next few days, he made sure to coincidentally run into Nino at the same spot. And those 2 reckless bikers as well. By the 8th day of the time loop, Makoto could predict their moves with 100% accuracy. He chatted casually with Nino, all while keeping track of the time. As the familiar engine roars approached, followed by the gasps of the crowd, Makoto leapt into the air and delivered a flying kick. A perfect hit. Right into the biker who almost hit him before. That strike pierced the stars. The rider was sent flying, crashing hard into the pavement and tumbling several times. The motorcycle also slid several meters after tipping over, thankfully missing all the pedestrians. The other biker, who had been laughing just moments ago, was no longer laughing. He stopped, looked back at his fallen friend who wasn't getting up anytime soon. Then immediately gunned the throttle. And fled. Brotherhood in the heart. When in trouble, phone calls go unanswered. As for Nino, who had witnessed everything from the sidelines, she was completely stunned. A few young guys nearby were also speechless for a moment. Once they recovered, they shouted in excitement, "Holy crap! That was a Leo flying kick." Chapter 37, Bro, I came to hang out. Makoto didn't know if that kick of his could shatter the whole summer. But he knew that his signature Leo flying kick had just hyped up the entire street. Nice one. I've been wanting to do that to those city racers for ages. That was the voice of an excited young man. That guy's not dead, right? Should we call the police? That was a concerned middle-aged man. As for Nino, the first thing she did when she snapped back to her senses was rush over to check on the motorcyclist with a worried expression. The guy was now clutching his right leg on the ground, wailing in pain. Most likely broken from the fall. She quickly returned to Makoto's side. That was way too reckless. I'm calling my dad right now. He'll definitely be able to help you. Makoto felt a warmth in his heart. Even though she was clearly panicking, she still thought of helping him first. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Makoto gently pressed down on her hand that was holding the phone. How can it be fine? So many people saw it. Just leave it to me, I'll take care of it. Oh right, I heard from Itsuki that you're really good at cooking. I'm pretty decent myself. Want to exchange some ideas? What the heck, we're in this kind of situation and you're still thinking about cooking. Nino muttered anxiously, but she was no match for his strength. In the end, Makoto managed to push her into the supermarket. She remained distracted the entire time they were grocery shopping. Especially when she overheard someone outside say they had called the police, her anxiety only grew worse. But when she turned around, she saw Makoto calmly selecting ingredients for her. That baffled her. Did he really have a plan? Was his family well connected? Nino felt increasingly uneasy. Makoto's way of dealing with the street racer was something she actually found satisfying. But satisfaction was one thing. Now that things had escalated, she was panicking. After all, she was just a high school girl with no experience handling situations like this. Thankfully, she still had her father to rely on. Looking at the composed Makoto, she made up her mind. As soon as she got home, she'd call her dad. They were friends. She had to help him. She knew full well that even if she didn't, if Akiko found out about it, she'd definitely call their father for help. After finishing their shopping, Makoto and Nino exited the store. The police hadn't arrived yet, but paramedics had already taken the injured guy away. Makoto was a bit disappointed. If only he'd brought a speaker, he could have added a dramatic soundtrack to the scene. Are you really sure you don't need my help? On their way back, Nino was still worried. Makoto gave the same calm answer. Just relax. I can handle it. He could always reset the loop anyway. He was even thinking. If he had time, he might as well kick that guy once every day. At the moment, he was working out regularly, and thanks to the reward from Yukino's mission, he could feel his physical strength increasing rapidly. Ridiculously rapidly. All he could say was, I'll just stop questioning anime logic. When they arrived at the luxury apartment where the five sisters lived, Nino stared at Makoto for a few seconds. Seeing that his calmness wasn't an act, she finally let out a small sigh of relief. Fushimi, why don't you have dinner at our place tonight? She asked, breaking character by inviting him. This had never happened before. Makoto could understand what she meant. You want everyone to think of a solution together? Yeah. I've never handled something like this before, so I can't come up with a good plan. But if we all work together, I'm sure we'll figure something out. Nino said seriously. Makoto looked at her and didn't say anything at first. Nino felt a bit uncomfortable under his gaze and asked awkwardly, why are you staring at me like that? Thank you. Makoto said, genuinely. Nino paused, then sighed. So you're still not going to accept my help? It's not that I don't want your help. It's just that I can handle it myself, so I don't want to trouble you. Makoto grinned and added, remember what I said before? I want to get along with you quickly, so I can become friends with all five of you sooner. Nino smiled too. I already see you as a friend. But like I said before, between friends and family, I'll always choose to help my family first. Got it. So you're a family first type. See you tomorrow then. Makoto said as he turned to leave. Nino watched his back and couldn't help but shout, you can call me anytime. I really can help you. Got it. Makoto replied with a wave. Nino was still a little worried, but out of respect for her friend, she didn't tell Akiko what had happened. That night, the other four Nakano sisters all noticed something strange. Nino was acting off. Getting distracted during dinner was one thing, but she nearly dropped a plate while washing dishes. Now, as they all sat in the living room, Nino was clutching her phone tightly without even looking at it, as if she were waiting for a call. Akiko, what's up with Nino? Yotsuba whispered with concern. Akiko shook her head. She was actually a bit distracted herself. She had sent Makoto several messages, but he hadn't replied to any of them. That definitely wasn't normal. She figured he might be busy with something important and didn't want to call and bother him. Just then, Itsuki, who was watching food videos on her phone, came across a trending local video. The caption underneath read, Life or Death Chase in Downtown Tokyo. Itsuki's eyes widened. The video showed two police cars chasing a figure sprinting wildly through the streets. Just as it looked like the person was about to get caught, they suddenly pivoted smoothly and darted into an alley. The police cars had to stop at the curb while a few officers gave chase on foot. That was where the video ended. Itsuki recognized the runner. That was unmistakably Makoto. What kind of joke is this? Am I seeing things, or has video tech gotten so good that it looks this real? She rubbed her eyes and watched it again. No mistake about it. It was him. The girl couldn't sit still anymore. She quickly held up her phone and said, Guys, look at this. I saw Fushimi trending on the popular channel. Eh? The other four all gasped in surprise. Nino was the most agitated and immediately rushed over. When she watched the video, she was completely dumbfounded. This is your idea of handling it? Running for his life from the police in the middle of the city at night? What is Makoto doing? Did something happen to him? Akiko was frantic and instinctively wanted to call him. But she quickly realized. Makoto was in the middle of escaping right now. Wouldn't calling him just distract him? So she forced herself to stay calm and instead called their father. Fushimi's really fast. Yotsuba said as she replayed the video and made a new discovery. Mika watched for a while and nodded. He really is fast. Yotsuba scratched her head. Did you guys notice? You can clearly see Fushimi's face in the video. He looks super relaxed, and his timing when turning corners is so smooth. He must be really familiar with the route. The whole video feels like he's training or something? The other four sisters all gave her an incredulous look. Who trains while being chased by the police? In truth, Yotsuba was spot on. Makoto was training. Lately, aside from studying music composition, he had been pushing himself hard to improve his physical fitness, speed, and agility. Getting chased by the police? That was just another decent form of training. Anyone who's played GTA knows. When you really don't want to get caught, your senses sharpen like crazy and you unlock godlike evasion skills. As long as you don't get out of the car and shoot at the cops, that is. Right now, Makoto was basically playing a real-life version of GTA. At his current level, he couldn't outrun a police car in a straight line, so he turned the chase into an obstacle course, weaving through bizarre and narrow routes. The police, nowhere near as superhuman as Makoto, gave up after chasing for several blocks, collapsing by the roadside, gasping for air. How can kids these days run like that? Is he some kind of athlete? One middle-aged officer panted, his clothes completely soaked through. His colleagues were too out of breath to respond. At that moment, an arm reached out from the side, holding a bottle of water. "Have some water, officer." "Thanks." The officers all thanked him sincerely. They were dying of thirst. But when they opened the bottles and casually looked up, they were stunned to realize the one handing out water was Makoto. "You." The officers froze in disbelief. Was he here to mock them? Makoto said with a completely friendly smile, "You've worked hard today. Sorry for the trouble I caused." One officer perked up. "So you've decided to turn yourself in?" "Nope. I've decided to head home. See you." As soon as the words left his mouth, Makoto decisively ended the current time loop. The system prompts, "Host may choose to preserve any target's memory. Do you wish to do so?" "No need." With a flash of white light, Makoto reappeared in his room. His phone buzzed with a morning greeting from Yukino. Staring out at the bright and sunny day, he muttered to himself, "I should find a time to go see Yukino Shida." He typed out a reply, "Good morning, my lovely bro, Yukino. If possible, please refrain from using such troubling language when speaking to me." Makoto didn't respond. Because he already had a plan. On the 27th day of the time loop, drawing on his recent experience, he borrowed the motorcycles of those two spirited punks early in the morning. He left one bike on the roadside and rode off on the other himself. Over the past few days, he had been kicking those punks daily like clockwork. One time, with his enhanced physique, he jumped up and kicked both of them flying at once. His move was so clean and stylish that Nino's heart couldn't help but flutter. Wearing a helmet, he now rode the motorcycle toward Yukino's solo apartment. On the way, he messaged her, "Bro, hurry up and eat breakfast. I'm coming over to hang out with you." Chapter 38, Yukino, I'm going to capture you morning. Just after waking up, Yukino stared blankly at her phone. There were no outsiders at home, so she was only wearing a light-colored camisole nightdress. With no underwear underneath. The hem of the nightdress was very short, barely covering the tops of her thighs, putting her beautiful legs on full display. Her thighs were fair and plump, while her calves were slender and delicate. Looking like you could wrap your hand around them with ease. Her toes inside the slippers were pink and full, her nails neatly trimmed, painted in a young bud color that glowed like spring blossoms in the morning light. On Yukino's phone screen was a message from Makoto, "Bro, hurry up and eat breakfast. I'm coming over to hang out with you, come hang out with me." What does that mean? Yukino couldn't figure it out. Surely he's not coming over right now, is he? After thinking for a moment, she realized Makoto was the type to do something like that. But she couldn't come up with a reason why he'd come find her so early in the morning. Go to school together? Probably not. If he just wanted to experience going to school with a girl, he could easily contact one of the 5 Nakano sisters. Or even the rumored Kasamijoka senpai from school. Since she couldn't make sense of it, she decided to go make breakfast first. After finishing breakfast and just as she was about to head back to her room to change, the doorbell rang. At the same time, her phone buzzed. She picked it up. It was another message from Makoto, "Bro, open the door. I'm right outside your place." A question mark popped up over Yukino's head. "He actually came?" She quickly replied, "Wait a moment." Then rushed to her bedroom and threw on a long coat before heading to the door. Peering through the peephole, she saw that it really was Makoto. But why the heck was he wearing a motorcycle helmet? What kind of high schooler shows up at a girl's place early in the morning wearing a helmet? Yukino tightened her coat and opened the door. Makoto's auto-aim immediately kicked in, his eyes involuntarily scanning her pale, tender calves and the snow-white feet inside her slippers. Watch where you're looking. Yukino instinctively pulled her feet back and asked, a little irritated, why are you here this early? Makoto replied, I'm here to mooch breakfast. Yukino gave a cold laugh. Then I'm closing the door. Unfazed, Makoto said, okay, fine. I'm actually here to take you out. Yukino slammed the door shut without hesitation. Makoto's expression didn't change at all. 3 seconds later, as expected, the door opened again. Yukino's pretty face was emotionless. Let me make this clear, I'm not going to school with you. Why not? It's too eye-catching. Especially with you wearing a helmet. Then don't worry. I already took the day off. Huh? Yukino froze for a moment. Then she saw Makoto smile and say, so you'll need to take a day off too. The words "are you insane?" nearly slipped out of her mouth. But she quickly caught herself. In that instant, Yukino locked eyes with Makoto. Her arms, which had been holding her coat shut, slowly loosened, revealing a flat chest. If it were a Kiko wearing that night dress with no bra, it would have been obvious at a glance. But this was Yukino. So there was really nothing to see. Time loop. Yukino completely ignored her exposed neckline, her breathing quickening. Makoto nodded. Yukino clenched her small fists in excitement, then slowly composed herself and loosened up. In the end, she stepped aside and said softly, come in. Makoto took off his helmet and stepped inside. They entered the bright, tidy living room. Yukino's tone was complicated as she said, I thought you were joking last time when you told me that. Makoto asked, which part? Yukino shot him a glare. She knew he was doing it on purpose. Makoto chuckled. Oh, right. That line about taking you with me in the next loop. Yukino looked away. Sit here for a bit. I'll go get changed. Makoto reminded her, don't forget to call in sick. Yukino paused mid-step. Then his voice rang out again. Everything resets tomorrow anyway. This time, Yukino agreed. Just like he said. Now that she was in a time loop, sticking to a normal school routine had no meaning. Everything would reset. She might as well take the opportunity to dig for some answers from him. At the bedroom door, she suddenly stopped and looked back at his face. Makoto, sitting on the couch, looked up. What's wrong? Yukino made no attempt to hide the suspicion in her eyes. You're not peeking, are you? Makoto countered, why would I peek? Yukino replied logically, because it's a time loop. You don't need to care about rules or morality. If you wanted to, you could do anything. Makoto sounded almost impressed. As expected of you. The first time I entered the time loop, you said something similar. You always managed to grasp the key points immediately. Second in the grade for a reason. Yukino kept a straight face. Are you seriously bragging about being first in the grade this early in the morning? I'm not bragging. Just making an observation. Anyway, go get changed. Your bro here isn't the type to peek at his bro. Yukino said nothing more and walked into the bedroom. After taking off her nightdress, she picked up some clean underwear from the wardrobe, her thoughts becoming a bit strange. This was the first time a boy had ever been in her home. And she was changing clothes inside while he waited outside. It felt really strange. As she reached for her school uniform out of habit, Makoto's voice came from outside. Oh right, Yukino Shida, since we're not going to school, don't wear your uniform. Better to change into long pants so you don't have to worry about exposure. Exposure? Are you planning to lift my skirt during the loop? Yukino retracted her hand from the uniform and chose a long skirt instead. She was determined not to follow Makoto's suggestion. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction. Simple as that. As for worrying about exposure, she didn't believe he'd actually dare to lift her skirt. When she came out in the long skirt, she asked directly, you haven't had breakfast yet? Makoto replied, already did. But if you're willing to make me something, I could eat a bit more. Yukino ignored his joke and pulled out her phone to request a day off. Once she was done, Makoto stood up and headed toward the door. Time to head out. Yukino followed suit, her beautiful hair swaying gently with each step, releasing a faint, captivating fragrance. And then, she froze at the bottom of the apartment building. This motorcycle is yours? She looked uncertainly at the Harley in front of her. Makoto handed her a helmet. Borrowed it from a friend. Yeah, after getting kicked into the sky so many times during the loop, those two energetic guys probably count as friends now. Barely. Though once they woke up and found the bike missing, they'd probably explode in rage. Yukino eyed the helmet reluctantly. I don't want to ride a motorcycle. Makoto teased, is it because you don't want to hold my waist? Or just don't want to ride with a guy? Yukino put a hand to her forehead, giving him a look like he was an idiot. Who invites a high school girl to ride a motorcycle this early in the morning? Don't you think this is really weird behavior? I thought maybe you were worried we'd be sitting too close and I'd take advantage. Ha. Maybe I need to remind you. I've practiced Aikido. And I'm pretty good at it. That so? Then can you beat Lord Huangzong? Yukino realized she could never beat him in a war of words. In the end, she went back upstairs and changed into pants. A pair of form-fitting jeans. With one graceful step, her long, perfectly shaped legs swung over the bike, and she sat steadily behind him. Wearing a helmet, her voice was slightly muffled. You can drive safely, right? Relax, I've got tons of experience. Okay, you don't need to finish that. Yukino cut him off, signaling she understood. Makoto casually glanced at the girl sitting behind him. Though her frame was on the slimmer side, her thighs were still full and soft. Not all skin and bones. Just right. Nice to touch, easy to carry. As the bike roared to life, Yukino held onto his clothes. So, where exactly are you taking me? At this hour, most places aren't open. Let's just ride around for a bit. Makoto replied. So, where exactly are you taking me? She repeated. Zoo, aquarium, or water park. Your choice. Why are all your options crowded entertainment spots? Because the quieter places have age restrictions. We wouldn't even be able to get in. Yukino's voice turned icy. What kind of places are you referring to? Makoto calmly answered, I meant pachinko parlors. What did you think I meant? You better have meant pachinko. Yukino had every reason to suspect he was about to say something like a love hotel. Then, a realization hit her. Why were all the places he mentioned ones that helped people relax and have fun? At that moment, his voice drifted through the wind. I know how hard you've been working, Yukino Shida. I know you're always trying to improve yourself. But sometimes it's okay to stop and take a break. Besides, your mom already really admires you. Under her helmet, Yukino's expression grew strange. You're concerned about me? She had been under a lot of stress lately. Trying to beat Makoto on the next exam, digging deep into photography techniques. With her talent and learning speed, she could handle it, but the mental strain and fatigue were still real. Why else do you think I came to find you? When you move forward too fast alone, it can get lonely. In times like that, companionship becomes especially important. Makoto said. Yukino offered her own view. To me, companionship doesn't mean always being together. It's about emotional resonance. Good point. Guess I'll have to try harder. So I can resonate with you sooner. Makoto nodded. Yukino didn't reply. Beneath the helmet, a soft smile spread across her beautiful face. Resonance, huh? I am feeling a bit tired lately. My relationship with Mom has improved a lot too. The pressure came from being surpassed academically. It gave me motivation. But that family progress. That was also thanks to him. Yukino thought quietly. She knew deep down. She had never disliked this guy. On the contrary, from his easygoing nature to the way they'd interacted recently, she had a very good impression of him. He understands me so well. Is that why he planned all this to help me unwind? Even though the time loop will reset everything, for now at least. I should thank him. After a while, holding down her wind-blown hair, she said softly, let's go to the aquarium. I suddenly want to see the penguins. A little break now and then really is okay. She smiled gently. Only for Makoto to say, what's so great about penguins? It's not like you're topping up Q coins. Yukino. She thought, there he goes again, being ridiculous. This guy is really a handful. And he thought, it's time to start winning you over, Yukino. Chapter 39. First time's a stranger, second time's familiar. It was school time, and Makoto wasn't driving fast, so Yukino could steadily hold on to the hem of his jacket from the back seat. The whole time, Yukino carefully maintained a physical distance between them to avoid contact. It wasn't out of dislike, but rather due to her modesty and instincts as a girl. Along the way, she spotted several classmates she recognized from school, which made her a little nervous. But then she remembered she had changed clothes and was wearing a helmet. There was no way anyone would recognize her. Just as she was starting to relax, Makoto's voice came from the front. I see a bunch of familiar faces. Should we go say hi? No. Yukino rejected flatly. Then should we get out of here quickly? Makoto asked again. Sure. Yukino answered just as decisively. That aligned perfectly with what she was thinking. However, she had overlooked one important fact. Makoto was a scheming guy. After getting her consent, Makoto said, I'm going to speed up a little. Hold on tight. Yukino was just about to say that gripping his jacket was enough when suddenly, Makoto slowed down, reached back, and grabbed her slender arm. What are you doing? Yukino instinctively let go of his jacket and tried to shake his hand off. That reaction was exactly what Makoto had planned for. He slightly accelerated and let go of her arm, which caused the unbalanced Yukino to lean forward uncontrollably, her soft and fragrant body pressing against his back. To maintain balance due to the forward momentum, her arms naturally wrapped around his waist. The physical distance Yukino had tried so hard to maintain was now completely meaningless. Their bodies were pressed together, and her pleasant scent enveloped Makoto. To the students on their way to school nearby, this intimate posture looked exactly like a couple out on a ride. "You jerk." Of course Yukino realized he had done it on purpose. Her face under the helmet was fuming. "Hold on tight, bro." Makoto tried not to laugh as he sped out of the area. One student watched their retreating figures enviously and sighed. As expected, every guy should have a motorcycle so he can take the girl he likes out for a ride. Naturally, Yukino couldn't hear the student's remarks. She was completely flustered at that moment. She had never done anything like this before. Her whole body pressed up against a boy's back, and her arms wrapped around his waist. It was only after this sudden moment that she realized how secure the teasing boy's back actually felt. His waist was firm. Yukino could feel it clearly even through his clothes as her arms circled him. It made her cheeks flush under the helmet. She managed to keep her emotions in check and waited until they left the area. Just as she was about to let go and harshly scold Makoto, he suddenly said, "Huh? Isn't that Kasumijoka-senpai?" Yukino was taken aback, her attention diverted as she quickly looked ahead. That tall, curvy figure in black stockings. Who else could it be but Utaha? "I'm going over to say hi," Makoto said. Yukino's expression was frosty. "What are you plotting now?" "Nothing at all. I just saw someone I know and wanted to say hello." "You sure you're not trying to expose me?" "Even if I do, it doesn't matter. Everything resets tomorrow anyway." Yukino was speechless. Right, everything would reset. So everything that happened today was ultimately meaningless. She blanked out for a moment. Forgot to let go of Makoto's waist. Forgot that her chest was still pressed tightly against his back. And so, in that close posture, the two of them rode the motorcycle right up to Utaha. Utaha looked at them curiously. Seeing it was a guy and a girl on a Harley, she immediately lost interest. She always kept her distance from guys who gave girls rides on motorcycles early in the morning. But Makoto slowly approached on the bike and pushed up his visor with one hand. "Good morning, senpai." Utaha turned her head again, surprised to hear the familiar voice. When she got a clear look at those eyes, her expression became even more shocked. "Fushimi?" Her gaze then fell on the girl sitting behind him. Could it be Akiko? In her impression, only Akiko would be this close with Makoto. But she quickly dismissed that idea. The girl behind him had a chest that was way too small. No way that was Akiko's size. Meanwhile, Yukino felt a bit helpless. Not greeting a senior from school wasn't in line with her upbringing. She released her hold on Makoto's waist and mimicked his motion by lifting her own visor. Then froze for a second. Wait a minute. Did this guy say all that earlier just to make me hold him longer? Yukino thought the possibility was very high. After all, this kind of close contact felt unnatural the first time. But once there was a first time, wouldn't the second and third times come easily too? Because he was Makoto. Because today was part of a time loop. Yukino became more and more convinced of this suspicion. But at the moment, all she could do was greet the stunned Utaha with a calm voice. "Good morning, Kasumijoka-senpai." "You're Yukino Shida?" Utaha froze completely. "That's me," Yukino admitted calmly. Since she had already been exposed, there was no point in panicking. It was better to stay composed. That was her style. Utaha's expression became unusually vivid. Since there were no other students nearby, she even pulled out her phone to double-check the date, wondering if she had came to school on the wrong day. But once she confirmed the date was correct, she looked at them with a suspicious expression. "So you two skipped class on purpose? A first year taking a second year to skip class?" These two really were terrifyingly bold. "We took the day off." This time Yukino answered. Even though she knew it was a time loop, she still wanted to make things clear. Makoto chimed in, "That's right." Utaha's ample chest rose and fell rapidly, and her tone became uncertain. "What was the reason for your leave?" "As you can see, a little joyride," Makoto said, gesturing to Yukino behind him. Yukino shot him a deadly glare. Utaha nodded expressionlessly. "All right, I get it. A little couple impulsively skipping class for a ride. That's something teenage boys and girls might do. But still. If he and Yukino were dating, what about Akiko?" Utaha deliberately thought back. She remembered clearly how caring Makoto had been toward Akiko that day. It definitely wasn't fake. A small sense of disappointment rose in her chest. She had finally found a guy she could really connect with. But if he had a girlfriend, then she wouldn't be able to consult him freely anymore. "Senpai, we're heading off." Makoto waved and suddenly accelerated. At the same time, he quickly reached back to grab Yukino's arm so she wouldn't lose balance and fall. Because of that, Yukino instinctively leaned forward again, bringing their bodies back into close contact. "I want to hit you, Fushimi Makoto." Yukino's voice came through right by his ear. Makoto replied, "Why so distant between brothers? You call me your big bro, so it's only natural for there to be some physical contact." Yukino snapped, "Can you say something useful instead of just spouting nonsense?" Makoto chuckled. "Alright, let's change the subject. You've been working really hard lately, and since I'm a professional and also your big bro, next time I'll put together a complete photography guide for you, including my personal experience." He brought up something they had discussed in a previous loop. Yukino paused and went quiet. She really did need Makoto's help. She was quick to learn, but that didn't mean she knew everything from the start. If a professional could give her direction and technical details, she was confident she could master all the knowledge in a month. So this time, she said nothing more. Her fair, slender arms quietly wrapped around Makoto's waist again. And didn't let go. "I must be going crazy." That thought flashed through her mind. What Yukino didn't realize. She hadn't put her visor back down, and her body was once again pressed against his. Her brain was still lagging, and during that time, Makoto would occasionally sneak a sideways glance while driving. He took in every change in her expression. "Bro, you're adorable," he murmured. Yukino pretended not to hear him. Makoto had been quietly observing her, but the longer he looked, the more he found his gaze drifting down to her thighs. Those shapely thighs tightly wrapped in denim jeans. Everyone knows that girls with great waist-to-hip ratios, when sitting on the back of a motorcycle like this, give off a stunning allure from their waist and thighs. Makoto couldn't help but admire them in his heart. A girl with great legs really is something else. You were already killing it in thigh-high socks, and now in tight jeans, you're even more powerful. "Bro, can I ask you a favor?" Makoto said aloud. Yukino raised her eyes coolly. "Say it. I'll treat you to the aquarium later. Can you let me take a photo of you?" "What's the reason for the photo?" Makoto replied bluntly, "Your legs look amazing." Yukino didn't say anything. She just raised her arm and elbowed him. Makoto took the blow like a champ, without a word. Yukino finally spoke, "Don't even think about it." Their little bout of friendly ruzzing felt oddly natural now. "Alright, then let's just stick to the original plan and help you relax," Makoto said, feigning disappointment. Yukino picked up on the change in his tone and couldn't help but smile. But what she didn't realize was how naturally she was now wrapping her arms around his waist. First time's a stranger, second time's familiar. And the truth of that phrase was becoming more and more evident. Chapter 40, Admit It. You feel something at 10 a.m. Yukino finally got to see the penguins, just as she had hoped. There weren't many visitors at this time of day to begin with, and with someone like Yukino, this stunningly beautiful girl, standing there, both her presence and appearance immediately made her the center of attention. Fortunately, the staff's introductions and the penguins' clumsy, adorable behavior managed to draw most of the attention away. Otherwise, Yukino likely wouldn't have wanted to stay any longer. Makoto wasn't interested in penguins. Earlier this morning, he had called the music composition teacher and said he wasn't feeling well. Even though everything would reset tomorrow and the teacher wouldn't remember anything from today, it wasn't any trouble to say something out of courtesy. And Makoto didn't mind making that small effort. Yukino watched the penguins' round bellies and couldn't help but smile. These kinds of clumsy and cute animals always seemed to bring out a sort of maternal joy in girls. Her smile wasn't quite that dramatic, but anyone could tell just by looking at her. She was in a very good mood. After a while, Yukino contentedly looked away and turned to see Makoto chatting with some passerby. She didn't go over to interrupt, instead patiently waiting for 2 minutes. When he returned, she asked, "Someone you know?" "Nope. I just overheard them speaking Chinese with each other and got curious, so I went over to chat. Turned out they really were tourists from Huago," Makoto said casually. But Yukino focused on something else entirely. "You can speak Chinese?" "This time I'm not going to say I've just dabbled in it. I'll say I've mastered it." So confident. Yukino clearly had her doubts. She had read about Chinese before. Just the tones alone were enough to trip up a ton of students. It was notoriously hard to learn. Makoto was just about to reply when the 2 tourists he'd been chatting with earlier came walking over and spoke in Chinese. "We're off to see the other animals. What about you? Holy crap, is this your girlfriend? She's way too gorgeous." Both of them were visibly stunned by Yukino's looks. Makoto burst out laughing. "It's been a while since I heard such a textbook holy crap. The guys scratched their heads, looking a little embarrassed. Sorry. We just say that out of habit. Then both of them gave Yukino a polite and somewhat awkward smile as a greeting. Yukino politely nodded in reply. The other person asked Makoto, "You two must be a couple, right?" Makoto replied, "Not yet." The two tourists clearly didn't believe him. "You came together to the aquarium this early in the morning, you must be a couple. Dude, you're awesome." They gave him a thumbs up, impressed both by Yukino's beauty and by Makoto. Makoto laughed and asked, "What's so awesome about that?" The two tourists were stunned for a moment before laughing. "You actually get this joke? You really are awesome." After they said their goodbyes, Yukino suddenly asked, "What did you two talk about?" Makoto said, "They complimented your beauty." Yukino nodded. "I kind of figured that out. Their tone and the way they looked at me gave it away. Aren't you going to be modest about it?" "Why should I be modest? It's the truth." Yukino countered and then stared at Makoto's face, slowly saying, "But I still feel like, besides complimenting my looks, they must have talked to you about something else." Makoto replied, "They think we're definitely a couple, and clearly, they have good judgment." Yukino stared at him for 2 seconds, surprised. "Is that actually true? Why are you asking in such a doubtful tone?" "Because you have too many skeletons in your closet. I have to be cautious." Makoto deliberately asked, "So, does that mean you know me really well?" Yukino gave an elegant smile. "I can't say I know you well, but I do feel confident handling you now." Makoto turned his head and looked ahead. "I checked the map earlier, and there's a seal exhibit up ahead. Want to go check it out?" "Sure." Yukino had already planned to relax, so she didn't refuse. However, as they walked forward, the crowd suddenly grew significantly larger. It seemed like many people were headed to the seal exhibit. Yukino frowned slightly and was about to step aside to avoid the crowd when she suddenly felt warmth in her palm. She froze for a moment and quickly looked at Makoto, who was also looking at her. Their eyes met, and Makoto raised her hand. "Did you see this coming? I noticed there were a lot of people coming to see the seals today. This was a provocation." Yukino took a deep breath and said calmly, "Let go." Without saying a word, Makoto kept holding her hand as they walked forward. Yukino hesitated whether to break free, but Makoto spoke first, "Stay close, there are too many people here." Yukino fell silent and stopped trying to break free. At that moment, she thought to herself, a guy's hand can really hold mine completely. She quickly looked down and saw that Makoto's hand was covering most of her own. His soft and delicate hand, with its fair skin, now appeared even more radiant in comparison. Yukino didn't speak the whole time, but the occasional flicker in her eyes revealed that she wasn't as calm as she appeared. They had lunch together later, and as Yukino thought about Makoto's sudden move at the aquarium, she suspected that he might have had some plan. So, she spoke up, "Thanks for taking me out. I've pretty much relaxed now." Makoto suddenly asked, "How about we go sit at that cat cafe next?" Hearing the words cat cafe, Yukino hesitated for half a second, then regained her composure. "You really did plan ahead." "The cat cafe wasn't originally part of my plan, but I bumped into Yukino Shita-san in the time loop and learned where she'd be in the afternoon," Makoto explained. Yukino wanted to ask, "How often do you contact my mother in private? Why are you bringing her up again?" Instead, she asked, "So your original plan was to take me to see my mother?" "Yeah. I thought if we appeared in front of her together, she'd probably be really happy." "Alright, no need to say more. I'll go with you to the cat cafe." Chapter 41, Admit It. You feel something, too. Yukino made her decision immediately. Even if it was a time loop, she didn't want to go to meet her mother while riding Makoto's motorcycle. That just didn't seem right. Especially today, when she still had school to attend. Yukino remembered how Utaha had looked at her earlier, and she had already sensed that the other person had misunderstood her. If she and Makoto showed up in front of acquaintances again, it would make it look like they were skipping school to go on a date. When they arrived at the cat cafe and sat down, Yukino's body and mind relaxed again. She had already been charmed by the little kittens in this cafe last time. Now, seeing them again, her joy was impossible to hide. She absent-mindedly pet a cat and noticed Makoto raise his phone to take a picture of her. She immediately tensed up. "What are you doing?" Makoto looked at the photo on his phone and commented, "I was right. This shot turned out really well. Give me your phone," Yukino said. Rather than putting the phone away, Makoto reached out and held it in front of her. "Look at your expression." Yukino glanced at the photo, her first thought being, this guy is good at taking pictures. Then, she understood what Makoto meant. In the photo, she was gently patting the head of a calico cat, smiling with pure joy and relaxation. She couldn't even remember the last time she had been this fully relaxed. She didn't take the phone, but said awkwardly, I have my own way of relaxing. If you had a friend with you, the relaxing effect would be even better. Makoto said as he put his phone away. Yukino's expression didn't change. The friend you're referring to is yourself? No, I mean Itsuki. Makoto gave an unexpected answer. Yukino froze for half a second and then asked uncertainty, Itsuki? Yeah. You don't know her well yet, but her personality. She takes everything seriously. Will definitely be the kind of person you admire. Taking things seriously? Yukino repeated the words, then acknowledged, if she's really that kind of girl, I'd definitely be willing to get along with her. She made a mental note of this. But then she quickly remembered that everything would reset tomorrow, and she wouldn't remember anything from today. Yukino felt a strange sense of loss. Makoto just looked at her beautiful face without speaking. It was as if she had completely forgotten what she had said earlier, don't even think about it. But now, Makoto had her photo on his phone. And he had taken it openly. The two of them decided to leave the cat cafe at 4 p.m. so they had really spent the whole day outside. Yukino still insisted on going Dutch. But when they were paying, Yukino noticed a row of cat-themed keychains displayed at the counter. They were all cute, obviously targeted at female customers. She wanted one, but with Makoto standing behind her, if she bought one of these cute keychains, he might seize the opportunity to tease her again. Thinking about dealing with this kind of silly problem made her decide not to buy it. If you want it, just say so. Why is it so hard to admit you want it? Makoto's voice came from behind her. Yukino pursed her lips, realizing she had forgotten how well he knew her. In the end, Makoto paid for the keychain she had picked out and handed it to her. Thanks. I'll give you the money. Yukino said. She thanked him, turned her face away, and felt strangely hesitant to make eye contact with him. Maybe she didn't want him to read her thoughts again. Or maybe she was self-conscious about what he had just said, why is it so hard to admit you want it? She felt like there was more to Makoto's words than she realized. This time, he didn't ask her to stay for dinner, and instead, he drove her back to her apartment. Thanks for today. I had a great time. Yukino said, looking directly into Makoto's eyes, speaking very seriously. Makoto asked, is that all? Is there more? Yukino asked, puzzled. Makoto pulled out his phone and showed her the photo. That's when Yukino remembered what she had said earlier, don't even think about it. You've been planning this since then? Yukino asked, incredulous. Makoto chuckled. How could I? If I were that amazing, I'd be a city legend. A time loop isn't necessarily any less impactful than a city legend. Yukino instinctively retorted. Though it was a bit awkward, she stubbornly held Makoto's gaze. The photo will disappear tomorrow anyway. You can keep it if you want. She wanted to keep today's memory, but unfortunately, that wasn't possible. Makoto nodded in agreement. For you, the time you spent relaxing today is more important than a photo. Did you have to say that right in front of me? Yukino felt uncomfortable. Makoto didn't continue with that topic. By the way, didn't you ask me why I stopped calling you by your name all of a sudden? Yukino seemed a bit interested. Are you finally going to tell the truth? Makoto stared into her eyes. Because back then, I hadn't officially decided to pursue you, Yukino. Hearing her name like that, Yukino froze. Because it meant that he was going to pursue her. For some reason, Yukino felt the urge to avoid looking into his eyes. She barely kept her composure, her voice calm. I think there's something I need to clarify with you. Go ahead. Makoto gestured. Yukino suddenly felt nervous. She unconsciously bit her lower lip. She recalled his earlier words, be more honest. I admit I care about you as a friend, but I will never date you. She said softly. Makoto responded nonchalantly, is that all? Yukino stood there, stunned. What does he mean by is that all? You said you wanted to pursue me, didn't you? Makoto turned around and walked back, saying, some things you believe in might not be as firm as you think. Is he provoking me again? Yukino adjusted her posture, confidently raised her chin, and smiled in response, I stick to my own ideas. Makoto waved his hand and walked away without looking back. That night, Yukino didn't read in her room as usual but instead stood on the balcony, feeling the breeze. The night wind brushed against her hair, and it stirred something deep inside her. The sound of his voice calling Yukino echoed in her mind. The girl felt a little heat in her heart, and since she was alone, she didn't hide her emotions. Shyness gradually spread in her eyes. Admit it, you actually feel something. That thought popped up in her mind. But her self-control was excellent, and she quickly pushed the thought away. Her phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. She picked it up and saw that Makoto had sent her a photo of herself at the cat cafe. It seemed slightly edited, and the photo looked even better than before. Below the photo, Makoto had written, I have to admit, when it comes to looks, You're just a little bit above me, Yukino, idiot." The text was disdainful, but she was smiling, and she saved the photo. "It's a little unfortunate that I'll forget all of this tomorrow." She stared at the photo of herself in a daze. When it was time to rest, she sent her usual good night message to Makoto. In addition to the good night, she also sent sweet dreams. With a sense of regret, she closed her eyes. Meanwhile, Makoto initiated the reset. The host can choose to retain the memory of any target. Would you like to proceed? Retain the memory of Yukino Shita Yukino from today. Sharing memories from time loops kinda reminds me of Ganya and Ravi Eel, good and sweet romance. It's also a good manhwa, go read it if you haven't. Title is S-Class Suicide Hunter. Chapter 42. Leg playing years. As the sky gradually brightened, Yukino, whose routine was exceptionally healthy, opened her eyes. The curtains were tightly drawn, and no light from outside seeped through. Yukino quietly stared at the pitch-black ceiling, thinking that yesterday's experience had been really nice, but unfortunately. Wait a minute. Yesterday? Yukino suddenly sat up in bed, just like last time. Her sudden movement caused the strap of her nightgown to slip off, revealing her smooth, round shoulder and a large area of skin. But she wasn't in the mood to care about that. Why do I still remember what happened yesterday? Yukino quickly reached for her phone. Just as she unlocked the screen, Makoto sent a message. "Good morning." Yukino was about to edit her reply when Makoto sent another message. "Memories like this, I think, are very precious to you. So this good morning gift should be considered sincere, right?" She froze completely. The decision she had made last night, and the defenses she had just built in her heart, seemed to be forcefully knocked open. It was like a critical hit in a game, causing a one-hit kill effect. Some things you believe in might not be as firm as you think. Yukino's mind once again echoed his voice. The fact that she remembered yesterday and the happy experience proved that what he said was right. Some things really aren't as firm as she thought. So, in this some things, does it also include the belief that she would never fall in love with him? Yukino held her phone and didn't know how to reply. She noticed that her cheeks were once again flushing. "Admit it, you do have feelings." She sat on the bed for about 10 minutes, pulled up the strap of her nightgown, and, with mixed feelings, edited a message. "Good morning, thank you." Only he could enter the time loop, so the memory she wanted to preserve was finally kept. It was clearly something he did. "Is this the final step in your combo?" the girl muttered to herself. She realized that when she thought about Makoto, she no longer felt as confident. Yesterday, when she elegantly told him that she wouldn't fall in love with him, his calm and collected expression left her baffled. Now Yukino could understand that he still had a trump card he hadn't played yet. A trump card strong enough to break down her defenses. "This is troublesome." She muttered something only she understood. So today, for the first time in her life, Yukino skipped class voluntarily. She stayed at home the entire morning, planning to read a book and learn something, but she couldn't concentrate at all. She turned to practicing the piano, and while playing, a thought unexpectedly popped into her mind. Since that guy has researched everything, does that mean he can also play the piano? No, wait. Why am I thinking about him so much? Yukino pressed her long fingers tightly on the piano keys. She knew her mental state was very off. I can't read this book. I can't play this piano. At 10 a.m., she picked up her phone again and clicked on Makoto's social media profile. Yukino, do you want to come over for lunch? I'll cook, just as a way to thank you for helping me relax yesterday. Makoto, what a coincidence. I'm just out buying ingredients. When Yukino saw this reply, she paused for a moment. Was it really a coincidence, or was it intentional? She didn't dare ask. But when she turned off the phone screen, she clearly saw her own face reflected on it. Her expression was completely different from usual. I really am crazy, she thought to herself again. Around 11 a.m., Makoto arrived at Yukino's house. Yukino reached out to take the bag. Thanks, how much is it? I'll pay you now. Makoto was about to speak, but she added, I know you're going to say that in the time loop we don't need to worry about money, but I insist. Huh, looks like you've learned to answer quickly. Seems like you came prepared today, huh? But your preparation probably isn't enough. Makoto smiled, alright. After paying, Yukino opened the bag and casually glanced at the ingredients. Then she froze for a moment. The ingredients were very fresh. But the problem was, these were all her favorite dishes. She looked at Makoto with a subtle expression, and he quickly responded, haven't we eaten together several times before? I paid a little attention to your tastes. Yukino was silent for a few seconds, then sighed as if helpless. Why do you always pay attention to these details? What do you think? Makoto retorted. Yukino didn't answer. What do I think? I think you're just after my body. Yukino put the ingredients down, invited Makoto to sit, and proactively made tea, then brought out some snacks. I don't know if you like this, it's something my sister gave me last time. Yukino said. Makoto looked at the cookies on the table, then. Is this a cream puff? He picked one up. Yukino, yeah, cream puffs. My sister bought a lot of boxes. Makoto was about to put the cream puff in his mouth, but when he heard this, he froze. Cream puffs? Yukino asked, don't you like them? No, I actually like them. Makoto didn't explain. After all, this was a bit hard to explain. Yukino might elbow him if he did. Thinking carefully, Yukino gave me cream puffs. No matter how I hear it, it sounds strange. Makoto ate a little, then saw Yukino preparing to handle the ingredients, and asked, do you want me to help you out? No need, you're the guest. Actually, I'm pretty good at cooking. Maybe we can take this chance to have a little contest? Yukino turned around, are you serious? Her expression looked like she was caring for a fool. Makoto said, it's kind of boring just sitting here by myself. Yukino didn't refuse this time, then you can help me with the ingredients, but I'm still the head chef. No problem. Makoto stood up and walked over. A guy like him? How could he really be here just to test his cooking skills or help out? For example, right now, he grabbed the apron before her, and under Yukino's surprised gaze, he lifted the apron and said, turn around and open your arms. Yukino became wary, I can do it myself. Makoto mimicked her tone, I insist. Yukino turned around with a straight face. Girls at home usually choose comfortable outfits. As she turned, the hem of her light blue home dress gently swayed, revealing her slender, well-proportioned legs, which extended upward, making it impossible not to follow her with your eyes, admiring her hidden thighs and that beautiful waist-hip curve. Yukino's body was tense as she thought about whether she should elbow Makoto or kick him if he tried to take advantage of her. However, Makoto calmly tied her apron for her, being very polite the entire time, and even controlling any physical contact perfectly. This made Yukino's inner conflict and tension freeze completely. When she heard Makoto's voice saying, done, her stiff body instantly relaxed, turning into a sense of bewilderment. Wait a minute. Why did she feel a sense of expectation? This guy is definitely up to something. Even though Yukino had never been in a relationship before, she still realized it at this moment. Makoto was pulling her in. Yet, she couldn't control her emotions like before. It was all because he had played a trump card that breached her defenses. After they had a delicious lunch together, they each sat on single sofas in the living room. Makoto, watching a TV program, casually asked, do you want to go out again today? Yukino thought for a moment and said, no, I'm feeling fine now. It wasn't just her tense emotions that had eased. Thanks to his arrival, her once restless heart gradually calmed down. Yukino knew she could now sit down and study or practice the piano. All of this was possible because he had come. Yukino felt her cheeks heating up again. This was not a good sign. Sitting to her right, Makoto still spoke casually, since you don't want to go out, how about studying instead? Studying? Yukino was taken aback. Makoto said formally, I think you'd enjoy this kind of thing, and since there's an opportunity, you can ask me about any professional knowledge. Then I'll leave it to you. Yukino agreed without hesitation. This suggestion was just what she wanted. However, she didn't notice that Makoto was baiting her again. They studied together until about 4:30 p.m., and Yukino, extremely satisfied, stopped writing notes. She had learned a lot today. Her tone softened as she said, thank you for your hard work. Makoto, now reeling in the bait.